What's up, everybody? Look at that scary looking SOB on the screen. Thank God you got the mask on for several reasons. Number one, we don't have to look at your face. Number two, we don't have to see you lagging.
It's your fault. It's on your end.
Here we go
This
again.
is my Halloween 3 Season of the Witch mask.
Yeah, that's definitely going to have to come off.
But I need a drink, so I got to take it off.
Yeah, it sounds like shit. Anyway, welcome back to another episode of the Nostalgically Hip podcast. No, it's cool. Just go ahead and interrupt some more. It's all right. He didn't have his headphones on. That's fine. There we go. You just totally interrupted everything, but that's all right. What do we got tonight, man?
Halloween 1, 2, and 3. We're going to cover some more Halloween specials since it's the Season of the Witch. But this week, it's going to be a little bit different because we're bringing in an expert on the topic. Good friend of mine who goes by the name of Doc. And Doc, can you say hello?
Hello.
Hello.
And
That's going to be
that term loosely, expert. I just like Halloween and all things about this season, and I watch a lot of movies. So
right,
and I retain information that most normal people would just get rid of instantly because it's superfluous.
Right. But you're the guy that I love horror movies. That's why this is I'm looking forward to all this, but you're the guy that I'll know the movies, but you will know so many details. Like when we talk, it's always like, oh, the director of that's cousin was married to so-and-so who I was at their wedding and he was there playing pool over by, it's like you always kind of have something like that.
The superfluous stuff I was talking about. Yeah. First off, let me tell you guys, thanks for having me on the show. I'm not nostalgically hip. I'm nostalgically nerdy. So it's an honor to be here today talking to you guys about something I love and you love. I don't know if Andy's just going to sit there and be in hell the entire time or what.
Pretty much.
Okay. Perfect. We'll get you involved, Andy.
And you have a podcast of your own, right?
Yeah, me and my buddy Steve, you've actually been on it. It's called Schlock or Not, and basically we watch movies from all types of different genres, and we discuss the movie and break it down, and at the end we try and figure out whether it's schlock or not. Which, interestingly enough, my son went and saw a movie the other day, and he agreed. Him and all of his friends agreed it was schlock, and I said it was terrible. And he goes, "No, it's great." I was like, "Well, schlock is not good," and so he thought that schlock meant it was good, and I was like, "No, schlock is not good." It can be good. There can be good schlock, but normally that's, used for terrible movies that, don't have any redeeming values really, besides the boobs and blood.
Connie and I went and saw a movie this weekend. Forget the name. It was The Exorcist, the prequel or the sequel, I guess.
Oh boy,
Exorcist Believer.
Yes, that's it.
What'd you think?
I thought they wasted $400 million on buying the rights to that piece of shit. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that movie I think cost $23 million to make, and it only made $13 million, and it only made $27 million in the theaters. So and it's supposed to be. I guess the rights are for a 3-film deal, so they're going to have to make like over $100 million per movie to make that financially successful.
I really didn't like it. I mean, it was. It just seemed like it was poorly put together, and like they figured that they would ride the name only, and it's pretty predictable in my opinion.
So Ellen Burstyn, who played, I think her name was Chris McNeil in The Exorcist, the mother of Reagan, she shows up in this movie again, correct, Andy? She
does, and spoiler alert, there's someone else that makes a cameo as well.
I would assume Reagan.
Yes.
Yeah. So from what I heard, they offered Ellen Burstyn the role for that movie, and she turned it down, and they offered her an astronomical amount of money to go to the charity of her choice, and that's why she did it. And I'm sure she also said, if I do this movie, please kill me off. So did they kill her off?
No, they didn't kill her off, but she didn't come out unscathed. We'll just leave it at that.
Copy that. That was just a theory I had because I didn't know if she'd want to come back. You know who directed that movie, right?
I don't remember.
David Gordon Green, the good segue into, he did the last 3 Halloween sequels where they completely forget Halloween 2, go straight from Halloween 1, the original 78 version, and go to Halloween what was it, Ryan? Halloween Ends, Kills, and what was the last, or what was the first?
I can't remember, Doc. I seen the first two, I think, in a theater, and I held out for the last one.
The third one I didn't even finish, man.
The third one was so bad, dude.
David Gordon Green, Andy, is known for movies like Your Highness and I believe Pineapple Express.
Oh God!
So he really has no experience directing horror movies besides the Halloween franchise that I think that he murdered, like Michael Myers.
You know, speaking of, you will be happy to know, I did my homework, Ryan.
Okay.
I watched both 2 and 3.
Good. Yeah. You got 3 the night we got off last week, and you said you were gonna watch that, but you did watch 2 then.
I did, and as a special, I guess, homage, if you will, to Mr. Carpenter, there I watched Escape from New York.
Solid.
Interestingly enough, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I didn't realize that a lot of that movie was filmed here in St. Louis.
Which movie? Escape
from New York. Yeah, all of the train station scenes. That's all downtown in St. Louis. It's supposed to be New York, but
there's still a bunch of trash everywhere, and it looks just like New York.
Well, they didn't really have to do much.
Well, Haddonfield, where Halloween takes place, is Illinois. So I was thinking about that when I was watching them because we're right next to Illinois. So how far would Haddonfield exactly be? Would that be the north side, or would it be the south side? But
Halloween was actually filmed in Pasadena, California.
Okay, but it's supposed to be Illinois.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Haddonfield. But if you watch in the movie, you'll see palm trees in the background, and they had to cart in and import bags of old leaves to throw around the ground to make it look like Haddonfield.
That's funny.
We got our buddy Steve has reached out.
My co-host from Schlockernaut, Steve, is on here as well. So
hey, what up?
Good to have you, bud.
Hey, so what would you guys say your top 3 John Carpenter movies are?
Andy, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first because it'll be short. Not a big, huge fan. And when I say that, I don't mean it as I don't like his work. I just the genre is not. I'm not a big fan of, but definitely Escape from New York. He did Christine, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked Christine quite a bit. Man, I'm not gonna lie, I'd be hard pressed to think of a third one right now.
Ryan?
It's a hard one because he's got, I love Christine. I love They Live.
Yeah, it's a classic. That fight scene between Ronnie
1, 2. I'm a big fan of 3. That's my guilty pleasure. That's Halloween's. I like Assault and Precinct 13, right?
Yep.
That's great. Man, if I had to, I would probably say The Thing, Season of the Witch, Halloween 3. And probably They Live. It'd be a tie between They Live and Christine. But Christine, I don't know what it is about that show. It's not even really an R-rated kind of horror movie, but I just remember watching the hell out of that on HBO back in the day.
It's just different. It was so different.
Based on a Stephen King novel too, by the way.
Right.
What about you, Doc?
I remember seeing Christine in the movie theater when I was way too young. I snuck out with an older friend, and we saw it in a dollar theater, which is aging me a little bit when you could see movies for $1.
God, I remember that.
Right.
But I mean, my all-time favorite horror movie of all time because it's a masterclass in direction and suspense and gore, stuff like that. My second would be Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh yeah.
Because
see, I didn't realize he wrote or directed that. That would have been my number 1 pick right there.
Yeah, that movie's fantastic, man. So it would be The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China. Another one that a lot of people overlook that I think is really good, stars James Woods, and it's called Vampires. Have you seen that one?
Yeah. That was 90s, right?
Yeah, late 90s.
Okay.
That was pretty awful.
Oh, I love that movie, man. Like the fact that, you got this ragtag group of guys going around finding hives of vampires during the day. and like stabbing him through the heart and then dragging him out with a winch outside. Like,
I'm not going to say I didn't watch it. It was just kind of bad, in my opinion. But what do I fucking know?
All right. So YouTube, you guys know that historically, John Carpenter, when he does a movie, he creates his own scores for those movies, right?
Right.
So which would you say are your top 3 scores by John Carpenter?
Dude, I'm going to go with the only one I know, and that's Halloween. The Halloween.
Halloween's so iconic.
He didn't do The Thing, right?
No. So that was one of the few movies that he was so exhausted from making the movie itself that Ennio Morricone from the spaghetti westerns did that theme, the music for that movie, and you would know him from the wee wee wow wow wow. You know, so he's a pretty well-renowned composer.
Fistful of Dollars, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Yep.
Sounds like my last marriage.
No, that's more wah wah wah.
God, I'd probably the only ones I really know would be the Halloweens, and I was actually just listening to that. I was helping my daughter with some homework, and she had to learn like some coding. It's for tech music, so we were putting together like on the computer a little synthesizer. And I said, let's do this one. So I kind of did a dee, and I figured out how to work those keys. I go, just record this and turn it in. She goes, Dad, it has to be original. And I go, just say you made it up. You know?
Just do like every other student, bullshit your way through the class.
That's right.
Even when you hear that today,
what's up, Jeff?
I put it on Alexa throughout the house, and it still has that. It just gets you. You know, just that feeling. It gives you that whole feeling of Halloween, autumn, the fall, and then trick or treat and Halloween. It's a great song, and it's really. I was listening to the chords. I'm going, man, this is really pretty simple.
It's simple. You know, it's really simple, but it's effective.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And it was a synth score too in 1978, where there probably weren't too many scores that sounded like that, and it was all done by necessity.
I'm really getting confused with this doc shit.
It's me.
Well, it's also me, but whatever.
Shit. Corman?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about like John Carpenter, obviously Halloween's the number one, right? I don't know, Andy, if you're able to play any snippets from songs or anything, if you have that ability, but another really good one is The Fog. If you ever heard that
you know what? I'm going to switch that out, Doc, and I'm going to go ahead and put that number 3, and just not Christine. And what did I say? They Live, and I'll make that 4 and 5. I forgot.
They Lived had like more like a country rock type feel to it, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, and then Adrienne Barbeau's in that, right? And
oh yeah,
that was his wife, right, at the time.
The Fog, yeah, and then so you have The Fog, and then if you get a chance to listen to the actual soundtrack from Assault on Precinct 13, that is a really good like theme and a good soundtrack.
Not for nothing. I told you I watched Escape from New York the other day, and I realized for the first time that Adrienne Barbeau had a face.
Right. Yeah, I remember her in Cannonball Run.
Do I?
She's in that jumpsuit, and she's God, who was the other girl? She did a couple movies, I think like Battlestar Galactica, but Barbeau, man. Yeah, damn, she was
in Creepshow too. She was a real bitch in that movie.
She played a whole trick. You know, he was in The Fog, right? So, yeah, I wonder if Carpenter did he direct that one? That was The Crate,
no, that
right?
was George Romero.
Yeah, but did he do that episode? The Crate?
No, that movie was George Romero, and that's going to drive me nuts. Stephen King worked on it. George Romero, I think it was all George Romero.
Mm-hmm.
But have I ever told you the Adrienne Barbeau story, Ryan?
No, did you bang her?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well then.
So I bought a copy of Swamp Thing. Do you remember that movie?
Oh yeah. He didn't do Swamp Thing, right?
No, that was Wes Craven did Swamp Thing. So I bought the version of the movie, and my kids were really young. So I put on the Swamp Thing. It's a PG movie. I put on the Swamp Thing, trying to infect my kids' minds with horror and all things, B movie and schlocky and whatnot. So they're under 10, both of them. So I put it on. I'm cooking dinner, and all of a sudden I hear my kids freaking out. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on in there? So I run in the living room, and Adrienne Barbeau is in a pond naked like scrubbing her bare breasts
God
in the
bless her.
pond in the middle of the movie. So I was like, holy shit. So I fast forward it, get past it because I didn't remember that. And I was like, wait a second, it's a PG movie. So I go back to cooking dinner and I come back and I hear the kids do the same noise again. And I come back and all the bad guys are having a party. And in the party, all the waitresses are topless, walking around serving hors d'oeuvres and drinks and shit. So I researched it, and what happened was the version I got from Amazon was a misprint by the company because they put the European print on the American DVD and sold like some copies by mistake.
Yikes!
And so I've got the European version of the Swamp Thing where they're okay with nudity and shit, and it's on the American disc, which is a PG movie.
Hey, Doc,
we
do you
need that disc? That's
oh yeah.
Doc, do you know what I would do to Adrienne Barbeau?
Arm wrestler?
I would disappoint the shit out of her.
Let her down ever so.
Actually, the last time I seen her, it was one of the newest Creep shows, and it's shocking. I mean, granted, she's older, but it's almost hard to believe that she's kind of got that look where she's sexy and hot as shit, but it can also go horribly wrong the other direction.
Her menopause would drive you insane.
Oh, I almost guarantee. I haven't seen a recent picture, but I almost guarantee she did not age well.
Oh no, it's.
She's got to have a wheelbarrow to haul her titties around. I bet. I might have found a way. Let's see if this is what you're looking for as far as sharing goes. Let's see here.
What's playing there?
I just put in the Fog soundtrack. Can you guys hear that?
Mm-hmm.
It can only play about 30 seconds or YouTube will shut us down.
Yeah, this is the very beginning. There's Tom Atkins.
Oh, there she is.
She is. Bless her heart.
So that was Jamie Lee Curtis and Janet Leigh, who is her mom.
Correctamundo.
Yeah. Thank God Jamie Lee Curtis is still around to tell us.
Janet Leigh was in Psycho, so she's a scream queen, and Jamie Lee Curtis is obviously a scream queen, so it runs in the family.
Right. I wonder if the tweeting would run in. I wonder if Jennifer Lee would be a big tweeter. Like, did you, by the way, see what she put up about that whole Hamas thing? And she tweeted out like a picture of these are the kids in Hamas being bombed right now. It turns out she mixed it up and put.
Did she get that from fucking Dearbird's Deli or what?
What, the picture of Hamas?
The hummus, yeah, that shit's pretty good.
It's actually during the war, but she put the picture. Is actually the picture she put up was the Israelis, the Israeli kids watching the bombs hit the buildings. But she messed that all up, and I thought, well, it's one thing to fuck that up, but it's a complete other that you think we need to hear your fucking take on it, which so many of them do today. They just can't shut the fuck up, you know.
Facts don't matter.
Yeah. And that's the problem is they don't matter, and they're so busy yapping and letting everybody know they're aware of shit that they gotta put their shit up. But I tell you what, there's not a day that goes by these days that what is that old saying that don't ever meet your heroes?
Yeah.
You don't ever want to meet your idols or whatever.
I met Glenn Danzig one time, and that did not go over well. And I idolize that guy. Oof.
Is he a douche?
Tell that story. He
so after a concert, he did like a little meet and greet. Right? Yeah, but so when you go after the show, you go backstage or outside, and he's sitting on his tour bus. He's so tiny, he actually sits on the tour bus or stands on the tour bus steps, so he towers over you.
You ever seen a grown man naked kid?
You like gladiator movies? So yeah, I met him, and not cool.
He treated you like shit, right?
Yeah. Glenn's getting softer in his later years, though, so he's doing all right.
My favorite video of him is when he gets knocked out.
Yeah, for sure. I had heard that he's an asshole.
Back in the days, like I'm sure in the Misfits, he would beat people up and shit. And then over time, like he's getting older. He's 68 years old. I just saw him perform like 3 weeks ago. He's 68 years old, and he's still got it, man. And he's a lot nicer to the audience now. So
is he? Yep. Probably off the drugs, maybe.
Yeah, that and when you got more years behind you than you got in front of you, it kind of tends to change your attitude a little bit.
Yeah, tempers you a little bit.
Yeah, for
sure. You want to leave a legacy of kindness.
Well, I didn't go that far. But that's just me speaking. But
you want people to remember you fondly, right?
Fondle me, please. Wait, what'd you say?
I remember he had a comic book collection for a while. He was distributing those back in the 90s, and they were pretty.
Oh, he's still selling them at the school or at the show. Sorry,
dude, they were the ones I seen. He would like, they were just morbid as shit. Like he'd use a hole saw. He had like this. It was an old man and his grandson, and they would abduct women, and then they would hole saw a little hole in their head and fuck their brain. And that was their get off. And I thought, fuck, Glenn, Jesus.
That's
I actually asked him about that when I met him as a kid, and I said, "When's the new Satanica comic book coming out?" And he's like, "Sometime next." I was just like, "Oh, okay."
Dick.
Very well.
Wow. All right. Well,
I'll meet your hero. So anyway, what'd you think of that soundtrack, that score from that movie? It makes you think Halloween.
Yeah, it sounds just like it.
Yeah,
definitely.
The Halloween time is here. The Fog soundtrack's playing.
So Doc, what is your? Now you said Halloween's not your favorite.
Nope.
You like them, but you got other Carpenter ones. I assume it's The Things, number one. But
great.
What's your favorite Halloween?
Part 2.
Now we talked about this too. That's a little bit different because that was one of Carpenter's. He kind of rushed that out, right, to get it out. Halloween was a big hit. The studio kind of pushed him forward to get another one out quickly. So he kind of
he wanted to do every Halloween movie was going to be a different Halloween story based around the season of Halloween, and they were like, we want more Michael Myers. So at the end of Halloween, Dr. Loomis shoots him, I think 7 times out of a 6-shot revolver. There's a continuity error there.
I shot him 7 times,
6 times,
6 times.
But he shot him actually 7, right? And I think that's.
He's not human.
he's a monster. Anyway, and he always escapes from the psychiatric ward on Halloween too. It's like weird. Okay,
shit, that's easy. I can show you guys how to do that.
So he pushed through. I don't remember honestly if Carpenter even directed part 2.
I think he did.
Check. Did he?
Was it because it was always him and Deborah Hill, right? I think he
Deborah
did it,
Hill
but I think he rushed through it.
But I mean, it's a loose story. But what I like about it is it's got more blood and guts. Let's see here.
He's got those tits you like, right? There's a couple.
Director of Halloween 2 is Rick Rosenthal.
Rick Rosenthal. There we go.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
So he didn't even direct it. I think he produced it, provided the score, obviously, for the movie. But Halloween 1, the original, is largely bloodless. There's not a lot of blood. It's kind of boring, to be honest with you. I know people are going to say blasphemy for that, but it's kind of boring. And there's not a lot of action, not a lot going on. It's more based on mood and theme. But Halloween 2 has all the goodies that you want. All the blood, the boobs, that apple scene where the kid's coming into the emergency room and he's bit off half his tongue with the razor blade in his apple was cool as shit.
Doc, I'm going to need you to look straight into the camera.
Let's talk about the apple scene because I was just watching that.
We got to do something important here.
Okay.
Doc, look straight in the camera.
Okay.
Dominus Ominous. I absolve you of all your sins.
Thank you. I needed that.
Now go forth and fornicate.
Yeah, well, what I was saying was that the kid bites into the apple, and the part that sticks out to me the most is that little fucker decided to eat the fruit on Halloween.
Right.
Right.
What a total work of fiction. Yeah.
So he eats the fucking fruit, and then he ends up in the hospital with a razor blade. So he he must have went to town on that apple because he got that whole fucking razor blade. I mean, it's half in, half out. It didn't even sink into his head until it sunk into his mouth that there's a razor in there. Then he goes to the ER, and I thought to myself, what an unlucky guy, man. He goes to the ER the same night the killer's going to show up.
Worst night ever.
Yeah.
Worst night ever.
I mean, that's God saying, yeah, your time's up.
Go ahead, Andy.
I was just going to say, I did enjoy the hot tub scene. You guys had
oh yeah, for sure,
prepped me for that quite well.
Yeah. What about the scalpel in the back where he lifts the nurse up off the ground?
I can just say that's damn impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was classic when we were kids. That was the big scene that everybody talked about, because how could he do that? He's so strong. He's not human, you know?
Yeah. What's cool about, the Halloween movies before they get into the Cult of Thorns shit and all the old, and Danielle Harris's character and all that stuff in the later movies is like there was no motive, right? And that's what Rob Zombie ruined when he made the remakes of Halloween, is he brought in a motive, like the whole
Yeah.
white trash kid raised in a broken home, getting picked on, torturing. They did have like the 7 stages of cruelty where he's torturing animals and doing all sorts of delinquent shit that shows where he's going to go. But like, even the newer ones, they show his face briefly while he's in the psychiatric ward and stuff like that. It's just all I just want a killer that has no motive, that you can run as fast as you want, and he's just going to shamble behind you and finally catch up to you. That's the stuff I like.
That's many of my nightmares.
Yeah.
Yeah, he takes the mystery out of it, right? Yeah. That was the whole thing, is because when we were young, we loved that movie. And when we would talk about it, we would talk about, so what do you think it is? Do you think he's the devil? Do you think he's a demon? Do you think he's just so cold? Because there was that whole mystery aspect of it was kind of like a straight line to kill. He's like a killing machine. And then he tries to do a background on it and he just shreds it, which is typical of Zombie, right?
He just overthinks it and tries to hyper stylize it. But like even later on in the original movies, they kind of decided that, Jamie Lee Curtis is his sister, which, like, didn't he kill his sister at the beginning of the first one when he put on the clown mask? Like,
but it's weird because in 2 they flash back, because there's a scene when she's in the hospital and she's flashing back to when she goes to visit Michael at this insane asylum. He's sitting in a chair facing that window, and she walks in with the doll or whatever in her hand, but there's no mention of it, just her. And apparently her parents thought, hey, let's take her to see her brother, the same brother that killed her sister. Is all you can presume, right? Like, obviously we know he killed the sister in the first one, but there's no mention of her.
So the parents, after one daughter's dead and Michael is committed, they decided to have another girl, another daughter. So he's got a sister now? Or was she at another babysitter's house in the first one? Or like having a
I'm sure they explain it. Well, wasn't that supposed to be the big shocker, like kind of like Darth Vader, right? Or I'm your father. It's kind of like he was trying to shock it, put that whole sister thing in it, and it doesn't really make sense. And I think that's kind of, if you want to pick that movie apart, you could start with that.
I mean, they were talking like every time Jamie Lee Curtis came back, they would have to beg her to come back, right? So like in one movie, she's like, I'll come back if I can kill Michael Myers and end it for all. And I think that's Halloween H2O. Like, and that's when she literally cuts his head
off. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you come back from that? Oh, it wasn't Michael Myers. He was able to switch clothes with somebody who's in another car and that head get cut off or whatever.
No, that's writing.
We can't also forget that there's been a lot of shitty stuff in the Halloween movies, like Busta Rhymes beating up on Michael Myers. Like,
that was 2-0, wasn't
it? Yeah, with Josh Hartnett, right?
Yeah.
So can you guys explain Halloween 3 to me, because I didn't get it at all.
Halloween 3, John Carpenter got his way so he could make, he could produce a movie that was based on the Halloween mythos, right? So that's exactly what it is. He just, another Halloween story, and then it bombed so poorly because there was no Michael Myers in it, and everybody was waiting for Michael Myers, that they brought Michael Myers back in the fourth one. So it's just this weird anomaly.
In the story behind it is he's not in it because it was supposed to originally be a trilogy, I believe. And that was his original intention, but the studio pushed for 2 because 1 was so successful. But so when he has 3, he probably, I think, had regrets later on, right, Doc, about he wanted to leave out wished he would have left out the Halloween name. It would have been a lot more successful because
you just named it Season of the Witch, which is also confusing because I don't remember there being any witches in that movie whatsoever.
No.
Well, isn't Halloween considered the Season of the Witch, though? Isn't that?
Yeah, but I mean,
that comes from?
Couldn't have come up with a better name to signify like masks that are activated by the television that turn your brain into bugs and snakes and shit. Like Season of the Witch is the one. That movie was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, who's also like a producing partner with John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, and he is also the one who created the Michael Myers mask. Which, did you guys talk about that? I didn't hear on the last episode if you talked about what the Michael Myers mask actually is.
No, we didn't talk about that.
I think that's pretty well known at this point, right? It's a William Shatner that wasn't it Castle? Was it Frank? Who's that? Not Frank Castle. That's the fucking Punisher. Who's the guy that originally played
Nick Castle?
Nick Castle. Yeah, didn't he tell him we need a mask, and he ran out to a Walgreens or something, picked up a mask,
bought a Star Trek Captain James T. Kirk mask. Cut out the eye holes so they would be bigger, painted it white, and then like tussled the hair so it didn't look like Captain Kirk, and like kind of basically combed it back. So that guy, Tommy Lee Wallace, actually still to this day will make custom Michael Myers masks from original James T. Kirk masks, so it's authentic to the original mask.
So he just took spray paint and tussled the hair, a hair pick.
I had no idea.
Eye holes out. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, so they were on a budget. They were on a really low budget. But back to Season of the Witch, man, because that actually has a story, right? Betsy was watching it and she goes, oh, look at all this sophistication. It's like the lady's got the gears and nuts and bolts on that tray. The doctor, remember, he sends the body to the lab, the body that got burned up in the car. Mm-hmm. And he sends the body. She's looking at all the parts and she goes, I'm seeing gears and washers, and I don't think there was a human in that car. And Beth goes, look at the sophistication.
That's another Tom Atkins film too, which that dude has got a face like a baseball mitt, but he is awesome. Man.
But man, he gets some pussy in those shows, doesn't he? It's almost fabulous because you're watching him in the fog. And he like gets out of bed he's in bed with Jamie Lee Curtis, and she goes, "What was your name, by the way?" And I'm like, God damn.
So my son and I watched that last week, and I was like, "Watch how fast Tom Atkins lands his trim." And she's hitchhiking, and he picks her up, and like literally 5 minutes later, he's having sex with her in bed and doesn't even know her name. And that guy looks like he smokes 2 packs of Pall Malls a day.
He gets out of bed in Season of the Witch, remember, because the ambulance is picking that girl up, their next door neighbor, and he gets out of the car. It's like the worst body. I mean, that body looks like, dude, like freaking 10 pounds of potato stuffed into pantyhose.
Fuck, it was hot. I mean, wait. Sorry, man, that was my inside voice.
But he's a great guy, dude. He actually laughs and has a good sense of humor about it.
That's the dude with the mustache, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love his line in Night of the Creeps when he's like, the good news is your dates are here. The bad news is they're dead.
Well, we can maybe make some good news out of it. Are they still warm?
There you go.
Thrill me. He always said thrill me in his movies. Thrill me. Like, he's got so many classic one-liners, man. Like, he's at all the horror conventions, man. People love that guy.
Oh, he's great. He's great. Awesome. When you see him on TV talking about it, he's just got such a good outlook on it. But what about in Season of the Witch 2 when you kind of get confused because he's doing detective work, and then you have to keep reminding yourself that when the movie starts, he's
a doctor.
Yeah, he's a fucking doctor. But he mid-movie,
you don't know if he got a minor in criminal justice, man. Maybe that's just hobby. I mean, look how many people are doing podcasts where they're trying to solve crimes for 30 years ago, for God's sakes, and they like,
you go distract him. I'm gonna run around the side of the building, and he's like off. He's like a fucking ninja.
So here's where my mind was at watching that stupid movie, right? And I say stupid because I may or may not have been intoxicated, but anyway, watching the movie and when the young lady's on the phone in the lab, like you were talking about the parts, I don't think there's a human body, whatever. All I can think of, well, you know damn good and well there wouldn't be no fucking phone there, number one. Where's your infection control? What the hell is going on here? And I realized, shut the fuck up and just watch the movie.
Well, she's looking at nuts and bolts, Andy. What the fuck is she? At this point, it's all out the window. She's got a tray, and it is literally 2 trays of nuts, bolts, and washers,
right,
and some ash. That's what, and she's like, I can't. And it takes her, by the way, it takes about 4 days, I think, before he gets to return. Because he calls her, says, "You got anything yet?" And she says, "I'm still working on it." And I would have said, "I've got nuts and bolts and washers is what I've got. I don't know what the fuck you want me to look for."
You didn't give me much
but she keeps looking at it, and she's sitting there. They come back to her later on. She's still there. Like at night. She stayed late to look at those trays.
She's a fucking government employee, man. She's milking that shit for everything she's got.
Through them. She's just like.
But anyway, did I mention I wasn't sober? So then I'm realizing, oh yeah, it's not that serious.
Yeah. Well, have you guys even thought about how awesome that Silver Shamrock song is?
It's great. That's London Bridges, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for putting that back in my head.
Yeah, so that's the London Bridges song because it was public domain. Yep. So they took that song and they changed it around so it was Silver Shamrock.
But I mean, dude, you hear that song and instantly you think Halloween.
I do now. I didn't before, but yeah, now that I watched.
Had you heard the song before that?
Well, not that version, no.
Yeah. You'd heard the original London Bridge song.
Yeah, I still sing it to myself these days. But
nice.
So what did you think of it, Andy? Did you like it or?
Again, I'm going to preface it with it's not my genre that I typically like, but it actually wasn't bad because I did feel that there was a plot there.
Would your genre be considered, Andy, because I'm going to try and do a little bit of an intervention here, Ryan. Would your genre be like war movies? Do you like war movies?
I like action. Yeah, action movies.
Have you ever dabbled in any of the action horror movies like Dog Soldiers or
I have
Dead
seen
Snow?
that one.
Dead Snow about undead Nazi zombies and shit.
I saw the Dog Soldiers. Was that with the British soldiers?
Special forces training out in the woods and they get attacked by werewolves.
Yeah, I've seen that. That was pretty good. I actually like that one.
Gladiator movies.
Are we live? I don't know what to say to that.
I mean, there's a whole list of action or like war horror. Like Jacob's Ladder, I always considered like a wartime because it's a Vietnam veteran with PTSD dealing with experimental psychology projects that gradually make him go insane and stuff. So there's plenty of that stuff out there if you want to seek it out.
I like that movie a lot, actually. Yeah. I've seen that a couple of times. Yeah. Talk to me, Goose. I'm listening. I'm not opposed. I'm just.
There's just you can find all sorts of like cool stuff like that have action, and then what's the other one? There's The Bunker. Of course, now I'm on the spot. I can't think anymore. I just went off the rails.
The Bunker, is that
where they're stuck in a World War II Nazi bunker?
And the devil
hauntings start happening. And they start gradually increasing. So
seen that one too.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that out there that you could, if you want to stumble upon that.
Yeah, I like that. I guess I'm not the slasher fan, if you will, but there is aspects of the horror genre that I like.
All right, fair enough. Ryan, what's your favorite slasher film?
Oh God, anything I say is going to sound
gay,
cliche.
Not as gay as that.
Cliche.
I don't know. I was always, as a kid, and I know we're talking about it, but it was Halloween for me. And you mentioned that there's not much blood in it, and gore, but I think I liked. It's more of your imagination that you did with that. Like you knew what he was doing. Even the dog gets killed off screen, but you know that he's evil. And I think that's what gives that presence to that, makes it, to me, scarier. When he stabs the guy in the door, that was just back in the day, dude. Like they try to put that in every one.
And he does the little head tilt there to see like he's like studying his work and admiring what he's just done.
Yeah, and they throw that in 2 again too, right? When he stabs the girl in the office, the doctor's office.
That's a signature Michael Myers move at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was great then, and you hadn't seen anything like that at the time, so I like those. I'm a big fan of that original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I don't know if you'd consider that a slasher, but that one creeps me out.
See, you can compare Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Halloween because it's largely bloodless. There's not a lot of blood in that movie either. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre is more about it's not about the violence, it's about the atmosphere. Like you feel like you can smell that barn, you can smell that house, right? And it's just the emotion that is invoked by these people being in this terrible situation, you know, that again, no motive except for, I guess, meat, because all they want to do is eat people. But you're just thrust upon this terrible situation that you can't escape. Because I mean, if you think about that, what is the bloodiest scene in that movie? There's really no
cuts his own leg.
Yeah, right at the end, the chainsaw falls on his leg and it sprays up a little bologna or whatever, and you get a little blood, and that's it.
But I don't think it has to do with the chainsaws. If you go back and you think about when he gets the first victim, that metal door slides open, he hits him with the hammer, and if you watch he's neurologically affected at that point. He's pretty much brain dead. The guy kicks his legs. That was pretty disturbing to me, right? Like I still like the authenticity of that. He pulls
with the legs
him in,
like kicking around like he's having a seizure basically from his
brain.
Right,
his brain's cut off, right? He's just damaged, and it's major head trauma. He pulls him in, and that's a good part. Then later, I'll tell you the part that gets me is when they put her over the bucket. And by the way, that lady, I can't remember her name right now, but she's actually in another one of a movie we both like, Doc, and that's Mandy. She's the old gray-haired lady that shows up with the Colt.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's her years later, obviously. But when they put her head over that bucket
and have Grandpa try and smash her head with a hammer.
Dude, that is so fucked up, though, man. Like, and the screaming that she does, it's just over and over and over. But to me, it was effective because when she's done, it just that screaming in that moment, you can tell how messed up she is. It makes it uneasy for me.
Well, even when she escapes at the end, like she's in the back of that truck just screaming her ass off because she can't believe she survived that and got that lucky that guy just happened to be driving by at the same time. But again, I'm going to go out on a limb here. You may not like it, but I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 better than Part 1.
I love it. No, I love it. And I seen that one. I think I seen that one right when it came on cable. We watched that, and I loved it, but it's more of a cheesy one. It's not as scary to me, but
it's not scary, but it's directed by Tobe Hooper. It's got special effects by Tom Savini, who's a master. But I don't know if you caught the homage when he is when Chop Top Mosley is bashing the head in of the radio DJ Slim's co-worker, the old guy, I forget his name. But he's smashing him over the head. His legs are flopping around like the guy in the doorway. The same thing.
Right.
His legs are flopping around. That disturbed the shit out of me.
Remember when he's digging at his head with that he's got that metal plate in it. He's digging at it.
Yeah, lick my plate, you dog. So, Andy, I don't know if you've ever seen that one, but
I haven't.
Bill Mosley plays Chop Top, which is Leatherface's brother in that movie. And he's a Vietnam War veteran. So, typical Vietnam War veteran, he came back and became a hippie. So, he's wearing like the hippie sunglasses and the multicolored shirts and stuff. And he's got a metal plate in his head from the war in Vietnam. And so it's exposed. You can literally see it. So what he does is he heats up a coat hanger and he peels off some of the cooked meat off of his head around the plate, and then he eats it like a kid eating boogers.
God damn.
It's
I don't know whether to be disturbed or aroused. I mean,
it's a good one. That one does it. You know what? I'll tell you this. When I watched that movie, I hadn't seen it in years, and I watched it. That's probably about 27, between 25 and 30. I was down visiting my mom for Thanksgiving. She went to bed and I stayed up and all the lights were out and I put that on. It just happened to be on. I watched it. I got up, dude, and I walked around. I never get scared like that, but I was like, man, I feel really weird right now. Is that weird, spooky feeling? And her screaming did that to me. That whole end scene, the escape and everything.
I believe it.
You know what I think would be cool is if Michael Myers, he had a little bit of a sense of humor to him and he would fuck with his victims a lot more. That's
like
just my
torture him a little bit.
Yeah, like, maybe torture them. Maybe
game.
Yeah, play with them a little bit. For example, when he was in the hot tub scene, right, and he's standing behind her and she's all, doing the thing with his fingers and whatnot. That's a golden opportunity to really fuck with somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I think that's just that character is there are movies where people, the killers fuck with people like The Collector or the Jigsaw Killer from the Saw movies and stuff. But his is just unrelenting mission to kill as many people as possible. You know what I'm saying? So he's very efficient. He's just got to get in, get out, get it done.
Yeah, it was just my sick, twisted, warped mind. That's all it was.
The first one for me, I still think that's what makes it neat. This is before we know that she's supposed to be the sister. He's almost, if you go back and you look at it, he comes back there and it's like he's on a beeline from the insane asylum to kill her because she, remember the car scene at the very beginning, and she like says, "Hey, don't you know speed kills," or whatever. And from that moment on, well, actually from the insane asylum on, but that moment kind of initiates it. He's on a mission to get her, and anyone who gets in the way, who's attached to her, gets killed. But he doesn't seem to go out of his way. He's not after to kill the whole town. He's not just killing it. He's just killing. And I think it was based on the babysitter killings, right? Like that had happened shortly before that. Because I think that was the original name of the movie. It was supposed to be the babysitter killing.
Let me ask you a question, though. How old was Michael Myers when he was committed? Do you remember, Ryan?
He was 12, I believe, right?
I don't know, but he was a young man, right?
Yeah, because remember, there's the extended version at the first scene. Well, I think he was 8 when he kills his sister. He's 12 when they show up in the extended cut earlier when Loomis shows up and talks to him. And then he's 21 when he gets out.
So, I've got a 15-year-old, okay? And he doesn't know how to get anywhere with directions. So how does Michael Myers escape the insane asylum? 1, he knows how to drive. 2, he knows how to get to his old house or his old, neighborhood. And 3, he knows what Laurie Strode looks like. Like, how does he know any of that stuff?
He's not a man, I tell you. That's all you need to know. That is it. That's it.
Like, I'll take my son to the other side of town and he'd be like, "We're over by Walmart, right?" It's like, "No, we're nowhere near that place. What are you talking about?" Like,
he moves around like, the amazing part is he moves around like Pepe Le Pew and still gets his kill. Right?
Yeah.
Being that this is the Nostalgically Hip podcast, like, obviously the way it's the time frame and the situation in which we saw a particular movie that makes us reach for that nostalgia, right? Like, all these movies we're talking about were made long time ago. So I often wonder, like, what our kids are going to view during their childhood that are going to imprint on their brain, that are going to make that connection to where, we talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, Halloween, all that shit. What are our kids these days going to be watching? They're far inferior movies. We know that. I mean, Andy just saw The Exorcist Believer, and he can tell you what a hunk of dog shit that movie was, right? But what are they going to see that sticks with them, that they carry on to their adulthood, that they enjoy so much? And so that's why I make it my mission to watch Steve just said, Greasy Strangler. That's definitely one that'll stick with you.
Sounds like
I've never seen it, but I hear about it so much from Adam.
Have you seen that movie?
I haven't. No.
It's a slasher movie, and then after he kills people, it's a horror comedy. And after he kills somebody, Michael St. Michael's, who's always covered in grease because he's the Greasy Strangler, he's always covered in grease and blood. After he kills somebody, he goes to a car wash, like a drive-through car wash, and he walks through it fully nude with his fucking 18-inch dong hanging out and gets scrubbed off before he goes home. So it's
a masterpiece.
I love that movie. It's not.
I might have to check it out.
That's just one of those, like, and it's a slasher movie, but it's super stupid. But I love it with all my. And then I think as Steve also mentioned in the comments, have you ever seen Sleepaway Camp?
Yeah, years ago. That was back in the 80s, dude. That was because they were all on the, back in the. Remember HBO would run those, or Showtime, after like 9 o'clock. If you stayed up late enough, you could catch those, and that was one of those I'd seen. But that and Slaughterhouse Massacre.
Sorority Girls in the Slime Bowl Bolorama. No. Andy, do yourself a favor. If you've never seen Sleepaway Camp, that ending has got to be seen to be believed. 100%.
Okay, I'll check it out.
It's very topical for today's news cycle. It's not very inventive. It was made on the cheap, but that ending is fucking absolutely nuts, dude.
I'll check it out. I'm thinking about the Greasy Strangler. It kind of sounds like a Mexican fucking titty bar / bar and grill, if you know what I mean.
We've got a good example of that too. The Titty Twister from Dusk Till Dawn. Have you guys ever seen that one?
Oh, dude, I'd seen that back in the day. It was a 90s movie. That was Clooney's first one, right? And I've seen that thing so many fucking times, but it's been years.
The Fine Watch.
Selma Hayek dancing on that table.
Listen,
Man.
if you haven't seen the Selma Hayek dance scene, Andy, you're missing out. Buddy.
That's what I'm saying. The Fine Watch. Are we talking the whole movie?
that part?
Does pause and rewind count?
Here's what was so cool about that movie for me is that I didn't know anything about it. My friend's like, "Do you want to see From Dusk Till Dawn?" I'm like, "Okay." So I saw it. I didn't know who Quentin Tarantino was. I vaguely knew George Clooney because I didn't watch what was the show he was on, ER or some shit.
Yeah. Some shit.
He was in Roseanne for a little bit. So I knew him a little bit, but I saw that movie and it was like a straight, crime drama. And then it goes into batshit crazy fucking vampirism with Jim Brown and Harvey Keitel and Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah. I had a crush on her.
Is that Julia? It's not Julia.
Yeah. It's Juliette Lewis. Yeah. Jeffrey Lewis's daughter from Every Which Way But Loose. And
yeah, but that movie, man, holy shit.
You know,
fucking barn burner.
I was in Okinawa when that movie came out. It was a wonderful aid to take care of issues, if you know what I'm saying.
I read between the lines.
Yeah. Good movie. Great movie.
Now, Sleepaway Camp 2, didn't that have the boss's sister in it, Bruce Springsteen's?
Yeah. It was, I forget her name, but it was Bruce Springsteen's sister. She didn't tell anybody about who her brother was until they wrapped shooting, because they did Sleepaway Camp 2 and Sleepaway Camp 3. They filmed them back to back for $400,000 a piece. But those movies are silly as shit, man. So
that was her only role, I believe.
I believe so. Yeah. I think they made it like an unofficial fourth one that you can see parts of online. But hey, Ryan, one thing, we're talking about the Halloween season, and one movie I haven't heard you mention at all, which is quintessential Halloween viewing around this time frame. Trick or Treat.
This guy's good. I like this guy.
Not Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat.
That's Sam, right?
Yeah. Have you seen that one, Andy?
No, but it's funny you mentioned that, because either Ryan and I talked about that last week, or I saw a couple YouTube videos on it. But
Doc mentioned it in the comment section.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That to me is like, it's like candy corn and those stupid brown pieces of shit that you don't like. You guys were talking about the
chewy,
like
nougat.
Sticks. Yeah, it's how you feel about Halloween wrapped up in a movie that it's an anthology movie, and all the pieces fit perfectly together. It's almost like a Quentin Tarantino movie, but about Halloween.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I need to go back and look at it again because it's been so long, but it really did catch on. Dude,
I went to the Spirit Halloween store, and there is so much Sam memorabilia and paraphernalia you can purchase there. Like they got dolls, and they only made that one movie. It came out in 2007, and they never made a sequel, but it is extremely popular. So I don't understand what's going on with Michael Dougherty to not do another one.
Yeah.
Quit while you're ahead.
Making,
I guess, right? Finish strong
Barbie
instead
too.
of like the Halloween movies. Just keep churning out those turd fucking movies. Jesus.
A guilty pleasure of mine, though, if we're speaking Halloween movies, Halloween-esque, I was a big fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
Oh yeah,
yeah, those are great.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, and that was based on a true. Like Wes Craven created that story based on people actually just going to sleep and dying. There was an actual news article where people were going to sleep and dying, so he kind of expounded on that and created the Freddy Krueger. And dude, let's not skimp on the fact that dude, Freddy Krueger's a terrible person. He was a pedophile who killed his children victims, and he was burned alive by the parents in vigilante justice. Like, it doesn't get any harder than that for a horror movie. So you have that to start off with. And then it gradually devolves into him making one-liners while he's,
right,
silly kills and
killing their kids, killing their kids and joking about it.
Yeah,
right.
Welcome to primetime, bitch, and slamming them into the TV and shit.
It's a great one.
Like, I mean, the further, and then of course the remake with Jackie Earl Healy, right?
Yeah, Bad News Bears, old Kelly.
Yeah, they remade that, and it was a. As Steve said, I'm partial to the gay one.
Yeah, I love 2, dude. 2's great, man, and it really is.
Wait a minute.
If you throw that aspect out of it, so it's actually made. It was
Ryan.
The guy was gay. The lead guy's gay. It's got a lot of gay things, but it's tame compared to what you see today. It was just kind of. What would you say, Doc? It was
just
kind
gay?
of. It's definitely gay, but it's good. I love it, man. I love the dance scene. I bet I've seen that thing 100 times, back in the day.
When it came out, Andy, in the 80s, nobody really realized. It's like Rob Halford from Judas Priest. We all should have known it. It was out there in front of us the entire fucking time, right?
Right.
I rocked to him so much, and
yeah.
I bet you did.
I still love him, though.
Yeah. So there's actually a documentary, Ryan, about that movie. It's called Scream Queen, and it's about the problems that guy had after that movie came out. Yeah, it's really good, man. The guy had a lot. It is good.
He does a lot of victim shit, though, which the director kind of looks at him and goes, "I'm sorry," and he's like, and he just keeps going. You know how they do, like not just gays, but the victims in general. On that, they're just. It's like, man, look, you made a good movie. Now you feel like you've been taken advantage of, but you did something that most of us will never do. 99% of us will never do. And it didn't work out for you. And you didn't get any more movies and stuff. I can't remember all of his bitches, but some of them were kind of over the top. Like, that victim status.
Sorry, I'm just reading the comment.
So, dude, that movie has so much going for it. Like the dog with Freddy Krueger's face on it. The scene, this should have been obvious to all of us at the time. Of course, I was like, I don't know, 9, 10. But when Freddy Krueger literally comes out of the gay kid's body, like coming out, like, Jesus, how do we not put 2 and 2 together then? Like, Jesus.
We just didn't do, that's the thing with today. What makes us so different is that wasn't always on our mind. Racism wasn't always on our mind. It just wasn't. We didn't think about that shit all the time. We
didn't care about any of it. We just wanted to be entertained, man.
Just show me we didn't care because we didn't. Life's not easy, and we don't. If you sit around and think about all that time, you're going to be living in a society kind of like the one we're living in now, and that's kind of the problem. Is that we're just so fucking inundated with it that we don't. No one's happy anymore.
Well,
Adam got flipped off. He told me the other day he got flipped off by a 90-year-old man in a car. Nice. What are you making that? And I go, no one's happy anymore, dude. Everybody hates everybody.
We know back then movies were made for the purpose of escape.
Yes.
And nowadays they're made to preach, push an agenda.
And maybe that's why we have such a fond memory of those movies is the escapism, like the way they made us feel when we were watching them, just exhilarated.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, they go back and watch them too now. That's funny because the kids today, well, they don't watch. My kids, I don't know about yours, Doc. They don't watch TV. So I think it's funny when they put all this stuff on today, like all of this message that they're pushing. My kids aren't watching that. I don't know about your kids, but they don't watch. They look at their phones or they play games.
And then like every now and then he'll surprise me and be like, "Oh, let's watch a movie." And I'll say, "I've got an extensive DVD collection." I'll be like, "Just pick something," and he always picks solid picks, man. So I'm super proud of. He always goes right to the ones that I'm like, "Mwah, that's good shit right there."
That's my boy.
Yeah.
Then, like, dude, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but Nightmare on Elm Street was genuinely terrifying when it came out, man.
It was to me the first one for sure.
I didn't sleep for fucking weeks. It seemed like I could not. Of course, I was way too young to watch it. My parents were they weren't helicopter parents like they all are today. They were like, whatever. I remember watching Revenge of the Nerds, and my dad watched it after me, and he came upstairs, and I was in bed, and I heard him say, "Man, I wish I had seen that before Eric did." Holy shit! Like, parents just, I don't know about all parents, but my parents just didn't care what I watched. Like MPAA ratings, be damned. Who gives a shit? Like.
Well, it was different. I remember I was watching Friday the 13th came on HBO, and it's just me and my dad in there, and that do 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 do, and they did that whole thing, and then it starts off with the hitchhiker, picks up the lady on the road, she's backpacking. He chases her into the woods and cuts her throat. The minute he cut her throat, my dad's head just whipped over, and he goes, "All right, go to bed." I remember he sent my ass to bed. And I remember going in and laying in bed, and my fucking eyes were just wide open, staring at the ceiling the whole night. Can't believe what I just seen. And he sent me to bed on that note. Not a talk, not anything. Not like, "Hey, son, before you go to bed, that's a movie, right? You're gonna be okay."
There's no guidance. Like, go to bed. There's no guidance there. Just like, go to bed with all your deepest, darkest fears tucked right into you, and have a good night.
Yeah, dude. I woke up with a few gray hairs. I'd lost 2 years of my life. I didn't get any sleep. It was unbelievable. That was a growing moment for me. That's how our parents handled shit, right? Go to bed.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched The Evil Dead, the original, basically through my stepdad's armpit because I was in his lap just watching that movie. And what's crazy is, like, it's based in the woods. And it was actually filmed in the woods in Tennessee, so it looked just like my backyard. Mm-hmm. So, like, I walk outside of my house, I'm in the fucking Evil Dead. I'm waiting for a tree to rape me, for God's sakes, or a deadite to come attack me. But it just...
Hey, Doc.
Yeah.
You can't rape the willing man.
That's true. Is that environmentally safe to be raped by a tree? I guess so.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Even Sam Raimi to this day says that scene, he probably should have put it in because it was far too... intense for Evil Dead was all horror. Evil Dead 2 was all horror comedy. Evil 3 was basically fucking Three Stooges in medieval times. You know what I'm saying? But that movie was really harsh back in the day, man.
Yeah, one of the things I think that, well, maybe it's because we're older now, but that genre, and this is what I say so often, is that I watched a thing, a video or a comic book nerd was expressing why they get so angry. Because if you listen to a comic book nerd, like Nerdrotic or whatever those guys are, they're just furious and they come across as angry. But somebody broke it down on a video that I watched, and I get it, man, I get it. And he was basically like, this is what we did. This was our genre. That no one would talk to us. They made fun of us for reading comic books, and they were out at parties, and we just read comic books, and we were outcasts for doing so. Then all of a sudden it gets made into movies, it becomes mainstream, and you guys start changing the source material. You're changing it to how you like it. So everything that we had, you've now taken and you've come in and trampled on, and that's why everybody's so angry.
Dude, I remember literally like going into school with a Fangoria magazine, and everybody like looking at me like I had a dick growing out of my forehead because it's so weird. It was like, it was just, that was my thing, man. That's what I loved.
Yeah, dude, I became a Motley Crue fan in like the 4th grade, and everybody thought I worshiped the devil and made fun of me, but Kiss had been around before then. I was a fan of them, and it was just, you were an outcast. But if you liked that genre, and there weren't a lot of people, this is the thing that people today don't know. It wasn't cool to like horror movies. People thought you were a killer. They thought, what do you? That would be the question you would get. Stephen King, we brought it up in one of our podcasts, got it all the time. And that was, you really want to do that stuff to people? No, man. We just like fear. We like the scared. We like the shock value of it. But nobody understood it back then. Now everybody likes it.
It was counterculture, man. It was counterculture.
Yeah, but
it hit on a nerve that it scratched an itch that nothing else could do. And do you remember like when you became a horror fan, or when you realized like you really loved that shit? Like, what was the catalyst?
I can't remember exactly when. All I can tell you is that I knew I always liked that fear. I liked, it's an emotion. I had to take an emotions class in school, and one of the things that struck me is that there's comedies for people that love to laugh, and there's the terms of endearments for people that love to cry, and then there's the horror movies for people that love to be shocked or afraid, and it's just an emotion that you're stimulating, and it's whatever you like to stimulate. For me, it was, I love humor, so I can watch a comedy, but it's more so horror because I like that sense of fear, it stimulates me more, it moves me more. So it would have been at a young age. Of course, I wasn't able to just watch anything. We seen Jaws when I was a kid. I remember it came on regular TV, and we watched it as a family. And I'll never forget the head floating out of the boat, and I lost it there. So probably something like that, Doc. If
Mine
would
was
be
always
one of the first, if you call that a horror.
so. My stepdad had just started dating my mom, so he had no idea how to deal with kids, right? So he comes over to the house one day. My mom's making dinner for him, and he turns on The Exorcist.
Oh,
and I'm
dude.
young, like 6 or 7 years old, and she
Get
starts
out of my head.
Yeah, she starts stabbing her vagina with a crucifix, stating, "The sow is mine. The sow is mine." And I literally broke out in tears. I was so terrified because
that's so wrong, dude.
that is not a movie for kids. And I remember my mom coming in like, "What are you watching?" He's like, "Oh, sorry." And he changed the channel. And I remember this distinctly. He changed the channel to Richard Pryor's The Toy. So so it went straight from The Exorcist to The Toy, right? A comedy. But then I remember going into school, and I don't know if you guys had those books in the school where they would have like books that talked about all the different movies and or all the different monsters in Universal.
Yeah, the Crestwood series, Crestwood books.
You were talking about those. So it had like, a bio of Frankenstein and who wrote it, Mary Shelley. Shining fucked me up as a kid too, as Steve.
Yeah.
The music, just hearing the music as I was falling asleep on the couch when my parents were watching it, totally fucked me up. But so I started reading that stuff, and then I remember one time my stepdad told me Night of the Living Dead was one of his favorite movies. And I knew right then, like, I needed to bond with my stepdad because, he was my new stepdad. And I also wanted to face my fears. And I also liked the fact that monsters were outcasts, like I felt like at the time, right? So I watched Night of the Living Dead all the way through, and I wasn't scared. And at that moment, like, that was the catalyst. Like, this is my thing. I love fucking horror. Like, I can face my fears. If you watch something and just take it head on, you can defeat almost anything if you're brave and strong, even though I know it's a silly allegory, but still, that was my catalyst.
That brings up a very interesting question. Do you root for the bad guys?
No. I also like a really good story, and that's what I think is lacking in a lot of horror movies, and why they're not really that great, and why I'm not a huge fan of, like, I do like the Halloween movies, but because they're horror, not because I think they're great stories. I do like Friday the 13th, not because they're great stories, but because they're horror. I think the best horror movies always make characters that you can empathize with and you feel sorry for, or you see something of yourself in them, so that when they do meet their demise, it means something. Because if you don't have that connection with them, if they die, who cares? It's just body fodder, right? Like, you see all these movies where they bring in a busload of kids, like the newest Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie on Netflix. They literally bring in a bus full of teenagers and 20-somethings just for Leatherface to board the bus and kill them all off immediately. They're body fodder. There's nothing you care about them at all for.
Seems legit.
Yeah. Esther brings up The Shining, which was another one that it was on the HBO loop. So that show I probably seen a bazillion times back in the day. It didn't really upset me much. I remember, I think it was room 237. That's the room where the lady's in the hot tub, and then she gets out and she's nude, and you're like aroused.
You're like, dead titties.
You're going through all that shit, and she turns into that beast. And
dude, we were so young at that point. You saw titties in National Geographic. You were like, oh.
Hey,
well, you know what?
I'm not gonna.
And we're gonna cover this someday. We're gonna do where's the boobs, because that shit just got taken away from us like that. There's no more fun for you guys. You're done.
That scene you were talking about, when she turns into the monster or whatever.
Yeah.
I finished.
Figures.
Yeah.
Esther brings up Martyrs too. And I remember when I lived out there, I told him about.
Uh-oh, dial up.
It's my fault. Watch. Wait a minute. Doc, you're still here.
I'm still here.
And I'm still here.
And I am literally on a cricket plan for my internet. So.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Did I lose you guys?
Yeah.
I love that 227 the sitcom.
That was scary as shit too.
Woo! I'll be right back, boys.
All right, we'll be right here.
Yeah, dude. I can't remember though. What the hell were we saying? What's the worst? Esther bringing up Martyrs. That was one of the worst, man. So I lived out in Vegas at that time.
Hey, Linda.
we had a little room where we always would watch movies, and I actually got sick to my stomach watching that one. I just thought that it's a good movie, but it's disturbing as shit.
I've never even heard of it. What is it? Martyrs?
Yeah, Martyrs. Did we lose Doc?
He said he'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
He probably has to tinkle.
Yeah, Martyrs. It's pretty brutal. It's almost two movies in one. You kind of get like you get a first part and then the second part completely different. But yeah, it's one of those ones, and this is what I told Esteve back in the day. I can't recommend it. I wish I could, but it's one of those ones that if you see it, at least for me, like it didn't bother my wife at all. She kind of laughed because she couldn't believe how bothered I was by it. But
Linda says the French version is better.
Yeah, that's the one. We're not talking the.
We would never talk about the American.
We never, just like we're never going to talk about Rob Zombie's Halloweens.
Fucking hack. Absolutely.
Doc, I wanted to wait till you came back to talk about this because you had brought up the movie, the only movie that has ever truly scared the absolute shit out of me, and that was The Exorcist.
Okay.
Man, I was pretty young when I saw it, and I think that's a huge reason why. But yeah, man, that one just freaked me out.
Yeah, it's I think what was so effective about that is that William Friedkin took the subject matter seriously, and that's what they said was the Exorcist believers' problem was they took the Catholicism out of it and brought in just some like random religions and voodoo and all sorts of just mamby-pamby bullshit that really doesn't mean anything and doesn't have any like actual historical significance behind it. But also he shot that movie documentary style, and also there was the fact that Ellen Burstyn's character didn't believe in any of that shit. She wasn't religious at all. And if you remember, they tortured that poor girl, putting her through all the experimentations before they finally got to the part where she was like, fuck it, I guess I'll call a Catholic priest that I saw on the set the other day for my movie. And that's when, things really started getting terrifying because she couldn't do anything to save her child, and she had to enlist the help of people that she didn't even believe in the first place to help her.
Right.
Yeah,
I was my grandparents on both sides were both very hyper religious, if you will. And so it's always the fire and brimstone, you're gonna go to hell because you're a sinner, blah 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 blah. So I saw how they reacted to that movie, which, seeing their fear, I guess, kind of reflected onto me a little bit. But
plus, there was a lot of grief in that because remember, Father Callis, he had institutionalized his mother, and while she was in the institution, she wasn't being treated very well. She ended up dying, so he had intense grief based on that. He felt terrible that he had put his mother in that situation because he couldn't care for her anymore. And then the fact that the demon Pazuzu was talking to him with his mother's voice, lended even more intense feeling to the scenes. Because remember, Reagan, as Pazuzu would say, like, why did you do this to me, Demi? Why did you leave me? And that's just it. Plus, Father Karras was also questioning his faith at that point. For a Catholic priest to not believe in God anymore.
Can I hear your impersonation?
Your mother sucks cocks in hell.
No, not that one.
No.
The Demi. I mean, I'm sure it's a possibility, although she's not quite there yet.
She would just be, Demi, why would you leave me? Demi, why would you leave me?
I just wanted to see if you do it.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah! I'm not ashamed. I'll do whatever you want. Whatever. So yeah.
How about them Bears?
That's why.
Well, that was uncomfortable. Wow.
What, Ryan leaving again?
No, you said you'd do anything, and yeah, it's just.
I ain't
okay. Anyway. Linda said The Human Centipede.
That movie, I don't know. I mean, Ryan, I've seen that. Would you consider that a horror or just like a? That's almost a comedy.
Yeah, it's like It's like a torture porn. Yeah, kind of. The second one's really over the top, right? Because he does it's kind of the guy pushing the limit, but
or the guy's mimicking what he saw in the Human Centipede movie, so he's trying to recreate it, right?
right. And he's just he's going over the top, and it's almost kind of jokey because he knows that people were bothered by it or pretty much took it too seriously.
Right.
So he's kind of just exploiting it even more and fucking with them. But they're good. I mean, I think everybody has to see them if you're a horror fan.
Linda, just so you know, if you go to YouTube and you pull up the casting sessions for the Human Centipede, where you have the actors coming in and auditioning for that movie, it's fucking hilarious.
I can only imagine.
He literally gets these actors who are auditioning for a role, and he's like, "Okay, here's what we're gonna do. Here's the idea for the movie. So I'm going to basically duct tape your face to this fucking person's ass that you've never met before. And you're going to have to act through the entire." So, Linda, if you get a chance to check that one out. Also, just real fast on The Exorcist, Dick Smith's special effects work in that movie, he won an Academy Award for. So tell me how many movies that you can think of that are horror related that have won Academy Awards. That's a pretty significant feat. Especially since Father Merrin in that movie, the old guy for The Exorcist, was only, I think, 40 years old when he filmed that. And he looks like he's 65, 70 years old. So, and this was way before they could de-age people or age people. And, it was pretty archaic makeup back in that time. So it was a masterpiece.
I agree. The whole thing about it, I think the fact that it was so well done and so well made it scarier, if that makes any sense,
Oh yeah, like I said, documentary style.
Yeah, it made it more believable.
And it was a slow build too. So like,
for sure.
Linda says horror rarely gets awarded, and you know what? I just seen that Saw in the theater a couple weekends back. Yeah, Saw the new one.
Not too many people have seen Saw.
Saw. Dude, he's great in it. Tobin Bell's great in that show. So he could definitely be up for Academy for that performance, but he won't be.
No.
I
think the last movie that I can personally remember winning any awards that was a horror movie was The Silence of the Lambs.
Ooh. Yeah, and Anthony Hopkins was only in it for 10 fucking minutes, right? Yeah. It's amazing.
Talking about drinking a nice Chianti with some fava beans.
That movie scared me too.
Nick say to you when you came in?
That movie scared me too, but in a different way. Because that was a very real possibility. You could run into that dude walking down the street.
What's funny is, so we've actually kind of come full circle too, because Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Silence of the Lambs were both based off of Ed Gein, the serial killer from Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, so we don't want to get Doc started on serial killers.
We don't.
No, he's an aficionado. He might disagree, but I will not. He is an aficionado.
I'm not a.
He has blood samples of some serial killers. So.
No, I don't.
Allegedly,
some of them were never convicted because he's the one that has the murder weapons in his collection.
Well, basically because he killed them. Allegedly.
You want to hear what the coolest?
Yeah, Misery won. What did Misery win for? Kathy Bates won, right, for Best Actress.
I would assume so. Yeah, that's a good pull. Yeah, good pull. That movie was great. One of the best Stephen King adaptations there is, made by Rob Reiner, who we won't talk about, but still, he also did.
he's another one that's lost it. Yeah,
he also did Stand By Me too, man. So there's like
and that was The Body. That was a short story from different seasons, I believe. Or is it 4 stories? I can't remember. But
Night Shift, right? Maybe
Night Shift. Misery is almost. We talked about this on our Stephen King podcast, and it's almost identical. There's a few scenes like she didn't hobble him; she cut the legs off. But it's
the cop didn't get shot by a shotgun. He got ran over by
the lawnmower, dude. And I'm like, why would you put that in?
I want to see a fucking guy get run over by a lawnmower like in
Yes
3. Show it to me.
By the way, I'm going to bring up, since you brought that up, I'm going to say one of my scariest movies I've ever seen is Sinister, and that has a good mower scene in it. But yeah, and it's so the setting, the way they do it. And I watched that alone one night, and I was like, damn, it's one of those movies. I don't get scared a lot, but I was like, walk into bed, made sure, one of those delayed light switches, like you get to the end of the hall before you turn the light switch off.
You hit the light switch at the bottom of the steps and run up the
Yeah,
steps.
one of those. So I thought maybe it's just me. Maybe it was the environment that I was in that night. So I had the wife watch it. She watched it and goes, holy shit. She couldn't sleep that night. She goes, that fucking movie's wrong. And I go, but it's so good.
So I had that same feeling for The Conjuring. I thought that was a fucking creepy ass movie. And there's only been one movie that I've seen where in broad daylight, as a grown ass man, I watched it and I got chill bumps. I don't know if you've ever seen the Korean version of The Eye, not the Jessica Alba American piece of shit, but the original The Eye from Korea is oh my god.
I haven't. I've heard it's great. So. Is it so good that I should? I mean, I didn't think the Alba one was good at all.
I didn't even watch it because I knew there was no way it could hold up to the original. Man, that movie has got some scene. Literally, there was a scene in the movie that happened in broad daylight, and I was watching it at home at like noon by myself, and I literally got goosebumps. I was like, "Fuck, that's crazy."
No shit.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'll check it out. I've never seen it. I just really passed after seeing the Alba one. It's another reason not to see. Linda brings up The Martyrs and the French version. You can't watch the American version because it'll taint the French version, right?
They lose all of the essence of these movies. Like the original Martyrs movie, we talked about it on our podcast, Schlock or Not. That movie is so intense that at the beginning of the movie on the DVD version I have, the director apologizes for making it.
Yeah, wasn't he going through a hard time? It is
Yep. A lot of depression, suicidal thoughts and stuff. And he's like, I'm sorry. Like, I hope this doesn't hurt you, affect you too much. But
speaking of suicidal thoughts, what was the name of your podcast again?
Schlock or Not.
All right. Another shameless plug there.
There we go. Check it out. Our last episode was on Frankenhooker, Andy. So
sounds right up my alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about he did one after that? Did you ever watch that? The something of Ghostland or something like that? The same guy that did Martyrs. I can't remember his name, but
something in a Ghostland.
Yeah, it's a good show. He has a good twist on it, good little, he's definitely good. I don't know a whole lot else.
He's got chops, man. Him and Alexandre Aja. They're two of my favorite like French directors. Alexandre Aja did a very, very good remake of Roger Corman's Piranha with Chris O'Connell, where it shows like the piranhas like eat him up and his dick fucking floats down the bottom. Alexandre Aja also did the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, which was
High Tension was his best. Me and my wife to be would walk into that not knowing what the hell we were getting into. We showed up at the wrong time, said, well, let's just see this goddamn movie. I never heard of it. And we went in, it was dubbed, I believe. But man, it had us on the edge of our seats because that was when that whole nasty kind of shocking horror was coming out where, hey, this could be me and what just happened. And that's a good movie.
They call that genre the French New Extreme. So like there's a lot of movies, Calvaire, Irreversible, High Tension, Martyrs. Those all are just fucking brutal, man. The French were really onto something there for a minute. So,
well, who's taking that spot? And we talked about this, right? It was the Australians with they had the Wolf Creek. I know you don't like those, but the one they just put out, which I don't know if you've seen it yet. I've recommended it to you. Beaten to Death, dude. And that I liked it, but if you got an
Andy, do you have a question? Go ahead, Andy.
I just was waiting my turn. That's all. Do you guys consider UFO type alien movies as horror, or is that like a separate?
Sci-fi.
It's what? Sci-fi. Okay. Never mind. I was just going to bring up the worst movie ever, but okay.
Go for it. I'd love to hear about it.
War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Not Schlock.
Well, there's no fucking point to that movie, right? Like,
right.
There's at the end of it, I mean, they're pretty much running for nothing.
I was tired after that movie, man.
Isn't War of the Worlds, the remake, they all got destroyed by water, but in the original, they all got destroyed by the cold virus, something like that?
I can't remember.
I can't speak to the original, but the remake was the alien, like mechanical type machines coming down and collecting all the humans.
Okay.
And
yeah, it's exciting the way it starts out, but if you think about it, what is it, Andy? It is your dislike for it would probably be the fact that at the end of the movie, none of that shit matters. They could have just sat in the same place and right? They could have sat in their house and got the same fucking results.
I'm gonna break down a wall here tonight, and I'm gonna tell you the real reason why I don't like that movie is because my wife hates that movie so much that, I think it's almost 20 years old, and she still can't let it go at all.
It's like when I went in the Marine Corps to go see The Phantom Menace without my wife, and 30 years later or whatever, she's still saying, well, you didn't take me to see that movie, and she refuses to see any of them with me after that.
It's really, they're truly
I think I did her a
beast,
service.
Right? I still hear the shit from 20-some years ago. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What'd you do in the Marine Corps?
MP.
Semper Fi, motherfucker.
Hoorah. I see that Linda likes The Hills Have Eyes. I agree. And Nightmare said Schlock or not is schlock, which I also agree. And Steve was right. I did my wife a favor by not taking her to a Phantom Menace. So
Phantom Menace is terrible, right? I just finished that book. It's a great book, man. It's called The Secret of Star Wars, or Secret History of Star Wars. It was written in 2014 before basically Disney's massacred the living shit out of it. And if you read it, it makes you appreciate like what a genius he was, what a great mind, and what he put together. And started writing it in 73 in Modesto or San Francisco. He was out of Modesto, but basically a small town kind of guy, and just how he made it over the years, the drafts and everything. And then as you're reading it, you're thinking, look what Disney did to this shit. They absolutely destroyed it.
I'll be honest with you, Ryan. I'll never read that book because I fucking hate Star Wars. So.
Yeah, it's good read because it gives you the process of what it takes to put something like that together, and that's what's the whole book's really about, is what does it take to create literally probably the greatest story ever told.
It's really easy. It's really easy when you think about it. You just steal from Greek mythology, and then you have the undaunting task of creating your own special effects studio like Peter Jackson did with Weta for Lord of the Rings.
Well, I think it's more than that. When you think
difficult.
There was a lot of influences, obviously, that he had, but you have to give the credit. Who's artist that says only a fool doesn't borrow from other people's work? You kind of have to, but anyhow, it's a good book, and it explains a lot, like just what a genius he was, and what hacks we've got today.
Andy, you have your hand raised?
No, The Hills Have Eyes. Are we talking Craven or are we talking Aja?
Both of them.
What is he in a freaking?
I don't know. It's like he fell into a box.
He did.
Serbian film, Linda, a Serbian film, which is one movie that I've watched, and Ryan and most of my other friends refuse to watch. And if you've never heard of that film, like, it's not a horror film. It's got lots of violence, but there are two cuts. There's one cut that you can get that's unedited, and then there's an edited version that has maybe about a minute and 30 seconds cut out, and that minute 30 seconds completely changes the movie, which doesn't seem like it's possible, but it's 100% possible.
What's the name of it?
A Serbian film.
A Serbian film.
And I would suggest, if anybody's having a bad day, do not watch that fucking movie.
That's good advice.
It's crazy.
I have a lot of bad days.
Yeah. I've recommended it because I think people should watch it once. Just once.
I say you don't need to watch that.
Yeah, it's one of those to me.
Steve hasn't watched it either. Steve hasn't watched it, so he doesn't know.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I heard about it. I don't need to see. Isn't there like a baby gets raped or some shit like that?
Newborn
I don't need
porn?
to see that. I don't think anybody needs to see that.
A Serbian film, Linda, and the behind the scenes on the DVD I have actually showed how they made that scene, and the making of that scene is just as bad as the scene itself.
Jesus.
Because they're like, I got the DVD and it says the making in BP, and I was like, what does that mean? And as soon as I clicked on it, it was like newborn porn, and I was like, oh my god,
that shit will trigger me like no fucking other.
Well, it's like Estef says animal cruelty too. Was that in the Serbian film? Serbian, what is it called?
No animal cruelty in a Serbian film, but in movies like Cannibal Feroz, Cannibal Holocaust. Which, have you ever seen Cannibal Holocaust, Andy?
That's fucking terrible. That's got, yeah. I just watched that for the first time ever, and I tried to avoid that thing. Maybe I'm not with that, dude. That was the worst fucking movie. I was fast forwarding through half of it.
It's very boring, but it's very notorious because Rogerio Deodato, he made the movie. It's basically it's a found footage film, Andy, that was made years before Blair Witch or any of those other Paranormal Activity movies or whatever that they got their inspiration from. And it's basically like these people go out to document an Amazonian tribe, and during that they kind of fuck with the Amazonians and don't have any respect for them, so they end up getting killed. And the killings are so realistic that the director, years later, after he wrapped the movie, he told the directors or the actors, don't talk to anybody, try and stay out of the limelight, because he wanted everybody to feel like it was a real movie, like this, they found this footage and this really happened. He got arrested and brought into court, and he had to bring in the actors and show them how they did the special effects so he wouldn't get convicted of killing people.
Oh, wow.
His main actor was a fucking porn star, so he had to tell him to step off the stage off the bed for a bit so he could make it to court. I mean, that's what really the guy's pulling porn stars as a lead character.
It's Z-grade movie, drive-in movie schlock. It kind of in the vein of Herschel Gordon Lewis movies or William Castle stuff, except extra levels of gore and salaciousness and nudity and whatnot. It's not kind. It's not.
And it was made what 80 early 80s, 81.
Early 80s.
And it's not even bad for that time. It's just fucking bad. It's just like
they kill it. They had the actors who are all Italian actors, right? They had them like kill a turtle, like actually kill a big ass fucking like prehistoric turtle and fucking eat it.
They killed that freaking muskrat, right? It was a muskrat, and it's shocking even today because it's like, are they killing a fucking animal on film? Yeah, they are, and it's no one wants to see that.
Cannibal Feroz has one where a rabbit is eaten by a snake, but the only problem is you can see where they have a string tied around the rabbit's neck and they pull him into the fucking snake's cage. I'll go one worse. Have you ever seen Men Behind the Sun, Ryan?
Yeah, I fast forward to that turd too.
Men Behind the Sun is a movie about what the Japanese did to the Chinese in Chinese internment camps during World War II.
It's actually based on true shit because I think they did do that, right? That's when they were over there doing all the experimentation. So the world was off its rocker.
Awful. Yeah, so they're pouring water over detainees' arms so they freeze in the cold and then smacking their arms off. But there's two shots in those movies that stand out because of their cruelty. There's a scene of a child being autopsied that was an actual child autopsy scene that they used in the movie. And then there's a scene where they throw a live cat into a bin filled with hundreds of rats, and the rats eat the cat alive.
Jesus.
And they filmed it. Yeah, they're terrible, man. Terrible movie.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny what like care you think about. No one thinks of a muskrat, but then you see one get killed on film. And I think who was a porn star? Doc Sherman.
For what movie?
Cannibal Holocaust. Robert Sherman.
Idea, dude. No, I have no idea.
Yeah, so the main character actually, this guy beats up the director, attacks the director because he kills the freaking muskrat. He's like, that's a real goddamn animal. And I mean, that's what
they were not. Yeah, the actors were not happy with any of that shit, but the director was just trying to get, back then they were trying to get the realism, not realizing how morally bankrupt they actually were.
Yeah. Wesley Pipes. That's hilarious.
Wasn't he in Shaving Ryan's Privates?
Holy shit, that's hilarious. Linda, are you talking about the killing fields like from about Cambodia or something different?
Yeah, didn't that what win there? There you go. That won some awards.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. Yes.
Yeah, that was I wouldn't consider that horror, I guess, but it was a damn good movie.
It's
I
horrific.
haven't seen that, dude, since it came
was
out.
horrific.
Now, that was one with that little, wasn't the really little lady that,
Yeah.
yeah, I can vaguely remember. I've seen her in shit, but I don't know what the hell
She's been on NCIS, like fucking Loserville one. Not the main one, but some spin-off that nobody watches.
Okay.
CSI Kentucky or some shit.
Yes, some shit like that.
CSI Snotty Daisy.
It's where all the bad people are.
CSI Kentucky. Hey, don't knock freaking Justified.
Oh,
That's pretty much CSI Kentucky.
That's a great show.
I would consider Aliens a action movie in space, sci-fi.
Okay.
I
can see that.
A lot of people consider it
I
a
can see
horror,
that.
right? But
so Aliens is kind of like a haunted, a horror movie in space because the alien is like a stalker that's slashing everybody up and shit. But I consider Aliens, the sequel directed by James Cameron, it's an action movie through and through, in space.
yeah, for sure. What about I can't even think of it now. It's one I told you that's got a relationship to Hellraiser.
Nightbreed?
No, the space one with
Event Horizon?
Event Horizon.
That's a haunted house movie in space.
Right. But when I sent that video to you, did you see the relationship between that and Hellraiser?
No, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I sent it to you a couple years back, and you were like, "Oh my god, I never thought."
Well, I probably did, but I mean, I remember superfluous information, so I just some stuff just gets pumped out.
Leprechaun in space. Hey, there was a Hellraiser in space. Remember that? And
Jason
in space.
What about
I liked
the
that,
Abyss?
dude. I seen that one. I rented that when it came out, and I was like, "Damn!" I liked when he froze her face,
smashing on the car, the table.
Fucking awesome, like Roadhouse. That shit.
Was that?
I saw so that new Thanksgiving or what is it? Thanksgiving. Eli Roth movie, who I don't like Eli Roth movies, but the new Thanksgiving movie, doesn't he do that? He puts somebody's face in water and sticks it to a freezer door and then smashes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I saw that preview.
Yeah, that's a day one. I'll probably go see that.
I'll see that one too, even though I hate Eli Roth. But
what about the Abyss?
No,
never saw it.
I seen that in the theater, but that was what 89, 90 maybe. That's an alien movie.
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right, Ryan, what do you think is the very first slasher film?
Man,
Andy,
we'd have to say Psycho, but a lot of people would say Black Christmas.
Psycho is my first go-to.
Okay, Psycho, Black Christmas. I mean, Psycho's a classic. Black Christmas, Bob Clark, classic.
Mm-hmm.
But I would think like Black Christmas is more like a giallo film, because you see the killings through the killer's hands, right? You always see the killer's hands. But also, giallo normally has characters that are the person who's investigating these killings isn't a normal person. It's a police or a police inspector type person. What about, have you ever heard of Mario Bava, like Blood and Black Lace or Twitch of the Death Nerve?
I've heard of them. I've never seen them.
Peepin' Tom, stuff like that.
Yeah, Peepin' Tom, that's what, 60s, right?
63, maybe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey, well, I got one for you. I just watched for the first time ever, and I was blown away. And I'm sure you've seen it, Doc, but Andy maybe hasn't. I think you can get it on Prime. Carnival of Souls.
Oh, I actually own that, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
Damn, dude. So I'd heard it. I thought, I'm not going to watch that shit. It's black and white. And how good can a black and white one? And I watched it, and I was like, holy shit, I got to watch this again. And I did, because you could get multiple takes on it. I think. I was trying to figure it out, but it's really good. It's almost like a long Twilight Zone. And I like I said, I'd heard about it for years, just didn't think it would be for me. Watched it. I was like, shit, I should have watched this years ago.
I just noticed in the same vein, maybe Steve put Blood Feast, which
Mhm.
I don't know if you're familiar with any of the Herschel Gordon Lewis movies of the 60s and whatnot, but that guy was doing like extreme gore before anybody even knew what that shit was. You ever heard of him?
I haven't.
So Herschel Gordon Lewis, he basically created a whole subgenre. He used to do the nudie cuties, where they would have like half naked chicks playing volleyball. You
I'm
know,
awake.
yeah. Or you would have like, we're gonna go inside a nudist colony, and it was total bullshit because nobody looked hot in a nudist colony. They were all fucking fat schlubs with fucking tiny penises and fucking big old dirty boobs. But Herschel Gordon Lewis decided to create a new genre um, for drive-ins that were called splatter movies. So he had a movie called Blood Feast where Fuad Ramses would go around and he would seduce a girl, he would kill her, and then he would cut her up and put her in his buffet that he was making for a wedding celebration or whatever. He did The Godfather of Gore, or no, he did The Wizard of Gore, Blood Feast. He did all sorts of 2000 Maniacs. You ever heard of that one, Ryan? Seems like
Yeah.
right up your alley.
And
Where
10,000 Maniacs too.
Yeah, the band. There was 2000 Maniacs, and then like 25 years later, 2001 Maniacs. But like a group of Yankees were driving from New York to Florida. They get stuck in some town in Georgia, and they're killed by the ghosts of the Confederacy.
Those damn Yankees.
Yeah, they're cutting their tongues out, and like he would have a big old fucking cow tongue in their mouth while he's cutting them out. It was all just terrible. Like in The Wizard of Gore, he kills two victims at the same time. He cuts a white girl's boob off, or nipple off, and white milk comes out. Then he kills a black chick, and he cuts her nipple off, and chocolate milk comes out. Super stupid. I just remember back in the day, my dad told me about these movies, and I was like, man, I got to see those one day. And I saw it, and they're fucking awful, but they made Herschel Gordon Lewis a shit ton of fucking money in the drive-ins back in the day. An absolute shit ton.
That's insane, man. Before you said that, I said, I hope he doesn't say that. Yeah, and you said it. And it was even funnier.
What's crazy, Andy, is they made a remake like 20-something years later of The Wizard of Gore, and it starred what's that fucking weirdo Crispin Glover as the Wizard of Gore.
Who's that?
Crispin Glover, Back to the Future.
George McFly from Back to the
Future. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, his dad was a not a big actor, but I mean, what was he in Diamonds Forever?
Danny Glover.
You only lived twice. Yeah, that was his bet. What was he, Mr.
It's a former president's wife, I'll have you know.
But his dad was a character.
Hope you didn't hear that. Anyway, how about them Bears? Da Bears.
Yeah. What about Free? Now this is a whole other monster we could go down, and I've thought about this, guys. I don't know if you're up for it, Doc. Before Halloween, getting together and doing a Universal Monsters one where we cover the old ones that I grew. That's kind of how I started in horror. I was absolutely enamored by like the Wolfman, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, the Abbott and Costello ones, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon. I watch those every year again, by the way.
Those movies were the ones that basically, when the Universal Monsters weren't making money anymore, they tried to infuse some life back into them by bringing in Abbott and Costello, which is basically why we have movies like Jason versus Freddy and all the remakes. So, I mean, they're classics to us, but back in the day, I remember my grandparents telling me they were fucking turds when they came out. Like nobody gave a shit about them because they knew they were just trying to cash in. But I mean, if you're talking about like Claude Rains and
Werewolf in London, yeah. Linda Lopez.
Fun fact: Linda Lopez. David Naughton lives in Las Vegas. He lives in Henderson, by the way. So he's awesome. That movie's great. I think that won an Academy Award for Rick Baker for special effects as well.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I remember, and I'll have to check that out again this year. I think it's been a couple of years, but the scene in the subway, right? That always freaked me out as a kid, and of course and I don't know why, but the part when it came to he had that dream when I think he was becoming the wolf, and he had that dream where the Nazis come to his house
front
and
door and kill all his family.
Yeah, and they cut the throat, and that was so like back then, realistic looking. That kind of shit is what would freak me out. But that was, and then remember his buddy got ripped up, and he keeps seeing his buddy is more decayed. Which that was what's that guy's name? Griffin Dunn, right?
Yep.
And his sister was the girl from Poltergeist who was ended up killed by her boyfriend. So
get murdered after.
Yeah, murdered. Yeah, but that's a great movie. Let's talk about that. I'm sure you guys seen it like I did. It was on HBO all the time.
John Landis is not one of my favorite people, though.
Like, is that because of his controversy in the Twilight Zone, or?
Yeah, I mean, the namesake of my podcast is Schlockernaut, and he made a movie called Schlock. He also did the Kentucky Fried Movie, which was one of our first movies we did on the podcast, which that movie cannot be made today, Andy. You know that.
No.
Yeah. Rex Kramer, Danger Seeker. Like, remember that? Yeah, that could never happen. John Landis, like, that movie's a masterpiece, but I for some reason, I'm abhorred by that director's, history of how he treated the family after their kids were killed. Do you know that story, Andy?
Vaguely. Yeah, I remember it being a thing back in the 80s.
Ryan, can you explain it to him when I go to the bathroom?
Yeah. So he
hope everything comes out okay, buddy.
The Twilight Zone movie, and I think the guy was it's Jennifer Jason Leigh's dad. I can't remember his name now. But they were filming it
involved the helicopter, right?
Yeah, it involved you're not supposed to use underage kids. They're supposed to go to bed at a certain time. You can only have them on, the union rules were 8 hours a day.
Right.
And it had to be in a daytime daytime, because they had to be in bed at a certain hour. Well, he decided to start filming. I think it was midnight. And he did the scene. Everyone didn't like where the explosions were going off. The helicopter guy was the props, the explosions, and then the dark and being at night. He was kind of warned on several fronts, and he was just breaking all the rules.
I think I remember. Didn't he have whiteout on the MVGs, and that caused the crash?
Might be. I can't remember all the details to it. There's a good book. I never did read the book, but there's supposed to be a good book written on it. But basically, the guy loses control of the helicopter, and you can pull it up on YouTube. And the helicopter hits, and it just chops off the head of God, I can't think of the guy's name now.
Vic Morrow.
What is it?
Vic Morrow.
Oh,
Vic Morrow. That's right. So it's actually the scene where he is the racist, and he's just lost his job or something, right? And so he's being cruel, and then he ends up in a Vietnam camp, right, Doc? And he's running through. So the scene is where he's got the kids under his arms, and he's running through the water,
like infant Vietnamese children through the water. The helicopter turns sideways because of the pyrotechnics, which the stunt coordinator had already told him was extremely dangerous. He disregarded him, and the helicopter blades came down and cut the heads off of all three of them.
Jeez.
Yeah, and if you, I thought it was 2. Was it 3?
It was all 3 of them got killed, completely destroyed.
Yeah, if you watch the video and you hit the pause at the right spot, you can see the heads flying off. You can just literally see the helicopter thing hit him, and you can see him. It's
so
quick.
They keep the footage, or what?
Yeah, the footage is on. Yeah.
I mean, you put it in a movie.
I don't think they put that
whole. They don't put that in there, but they have that entire sequence from the Twilight Zone in the movie. They just changed the ending.
Yeah, basically the helicopter tilts, and so the wings are going, and that's what hits them. I mean, it was over with before it started. It was.
So, Doc, was it whiteout on the MVGs from the pyrotechnics that caused it, or?
Yeah, it was just a shockwave. The explosions were too large, so when it hit, it knocked the helicopter sideways. Even though the stunt coordinator had said, like, "Hey, man, these are too big," and he was like, "I want big explosions." And so he could have totally negated that entire incident. And then after those people died, he was like, all right, cut, everybody go home. And he never gave the parents any compensation. He never apologized, none of that shit. So
yeah, I think Spielberg came in and finished it up, right? Because he got in trouble. Probably. Spielberg finished it up, and then I think he'd even warned him against it. He said, you can't do that, you can't do that. And he still did it. And then he got in trouble for it. So Spielberg finalized everything. And
if you see interviews with John Landis, he's always just like wacky, like fun loving, like, oh hey, I'm John Landis. Like, dude, you killed 3 people making a fucking movie because you didn't listen to the experts.
Right.
It'd be like, Alec Baldwin. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Alec Baldwin here. I'm happy to be here. And it's like, dude, you fucking killed somebody with a fucking prop gun.
Can you do that again, but add a few pew pew pews in there?
My name is Alec Baldwin. Pew pew pew.
I love it.
So, like, that's why I love his movies, but I can't fucking stand it's a love-hate relationship.
It's douchey. Yeah, it's like so, man. Is that me?
No, that's me. That's for sure me. What does Down syndrome sound like? Like Corky from this. Life Goes On.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so it's really that's actually a kind of a compliment because you give you a little bit of Matthew McConaughey, but you're slightly downtarded.
Just in a nightmare, I've got DS with a touch of the tism. So there we go.
All right.
What time does the movie
Linda Lopez brings up sounds as fun as the opening scene in Ghost Ship, which is I love that opening scene. I just showed me and my kids were laughing and talking about shit and goofy, crazy shit, and I pulled that scene up because that's pretty high tension. Have you guys seen that?
No.
I know you have, Doc.
Listen, all you do is, Andy, just pull up the opening scene of Ghost Ship, watch it, and then never watch the entire movie.
No, not true, because that is one of the hottest that girl, the singer in the very beginning, and you get to see her nude later.
Watch Ghost Ship and then switch to your favorite porno. Watch the beginning of Ghost Ship.
Dude, that broad was freaking smoking hot.
I don't need that much time.
That movie's not good, dude. That was the old that was in the era where they were doing Ghost Ship, House on Haunted Hill remake. The one that's really good, 13 Ghosts. That's a fucking remake, and 13 Ghosts is fucking amazing.
Nightmare says if we heard their show, the other guy sounds like a more feminine Richard Simmons.
Okay. Wow.
He looks like Richard Simmons too, without any of the fitness.
We'll be fitting this. Fitting something. Never mind.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Doc. If you can, it's not a bad movie though. Of course, it's been years. There's worse out there.
So, just to make you guys feel old and to bring it around, Andy, this year is Halloween's 45th anniversary.
Wow.
So, they just had a huge convention, Halloween H45 in Pasadena, where you could book tours. You could they would take you around to all the different locations filmed in the movie. And then one of the cool things is like the Michael Myers house is still not in its original position. They actually uprooted that house and took it to a completely different place. Kind of like the chainsaw store in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. They uprooted that entire thing and took it to a different place and made it into a barbecue restaurant. Yeah, so
delicious.
45 years of Halloween is nuts, dude. Like, how old do you feel now?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well,
what's that one? Oh yeah, Dick. Thanks. Appreciate that. I'll just go have my 4:00 dinner tomorrow at Denny's.
Denny's.
Be in bed by 6. Hey, thanks.
Well, we're so fucking old. We'll be taking grandkids out before long to trick or treat. You know. So I remember it was just me and.
Hush your mouth, man. Don't put that voodoo on me, man.
Here's how crazy it is for me, Ryan. So I had a buddy who's a total square, right? And he called me the other day, and I told him I bought a hearse. I got a 94 Buick Roadmaster hearse. And he goes, he was telling the story to somebody else today, and it was hilarious. He goes, Doc, what the fuck are you going to do with a 94 Buick Roadmaster hearse? And my buddy, I was so proud because he said, and you know what Doc said? He told me, well, I'm going to drive. Like, what else would you do with a fucking hearse? Drive it. You fucking make it happen.
Those cars are great, man. People are just dying to get in them, you know?
Do that.
I had a buddy back when we were like in our early 20s. He had one. He was just that kind of guy. So what we ended up using it for is after the bars, they would close up, we'd go hang out in his hearse. Because he had bench seats like along each side. You just sit back there and freaking party.
My son wants it as his first car, and I'm like, dude, there is no way I'm giving you a car that you can put a bed in the back.
Right.
So, Ryan, do you have any questions for me about the serial killer stuff or anything?
Well, it sounds like you want me to ask some, so I certainly can come up with some. Well, that was one of the things we wanted to have you on, about a year ago, I think. And you're a big would I call you a serial killer buff, or how do you want
an
me to
aficionado?
Aficionado, is that good?
His words, not mine.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so he
likes them serial killers. How about them words?
About years ago. It was about 4 years ago. He had, I think it was a Christmas card that Charles Manson. You're never going to believe this, Andy.
I do have one of those.
He's got more, but this is how I was introduced to the fact that I knew someone who was a serial killer collector. Now, without going into what he would do professionally, let's just say it's not what you'd expect for a guy like that to be collecting. And he took a picture of it. And then there was a couple of years later, he had another one where it was the craziest shit. He bought on some website, right, Doc? Like you get these on like a website. I think he sent it to me, but he sent a picture of a prescription from the guy who killed Jeffrey Dahmer.
I have a signature from a serial killer, Christopher Starver, who killed Jeffrey Dahmer.
Wow.
That's it.
What was it for?
It was for prescriptions from his commissary.
Wow.
I think so. When you go pick up you get a pill a night or whatever the hell you need, right, you have to have a ticket, right, Doc? And then
so they sign out like I got, ibuprofen or fucking the big blue pill, whatever you need.
Need that in prison.
Dude, I thought that was cool because like, who has a serial killer's autograph?
Yeah, and do you know what medications it was, or?
I can get back to you on that. Yeah, it says it on there, but I don't know. What got me started was years ago I met George Lutz. Are you familiar with him at all?
I've heard the name.
George Lutz was the name of was the actual guy who lived in the Amityville house.
That's okay.
Yeah, the entire Amityville story was George Lutz's story. Now, a lot of people said, of course, the house is not haunted. He just got into a mortgage that he couldn't afford, so he decided to create this fucking bullshit story so he could get out of the house and also sell this story and make millions of dollars, which he fucking did. So I went to a horror convention in Baltimore, Maryland, and George Lutz and another I forget his name, something Gentile. They gave a presentation on paranormal investigations, and George Lutz talked about his story in the Amityville house, and the other guy was trying to sell fucking electromagnetic finders, which were a thing back 20 years ago. So after the presentation, I went to go buy a electromagnetic finder. So I was talking to George Lutz, and I said, hey, I live in Las Vegas. He goes, holy shit, I live in Las Vegas. And I told him about my job, and he was like, oh, I may need your help one day. And so George Lutz wrote out his phone number. He signed his name and he wrote his phone number, which was a 702 area code, which is a Las Vegas area code. Ryan knows that. And he said, call me. He said, buy this electromagnet. This is how you know he was a shyster. He goes, because I told him my scheme. My scheme was I was going to put the electromagnetic finder by my grandparents' urns over the TV, and the electromagnetic finder would go off because it's by the TV, which is electric. And then he said, so when that goes off and your wife gets freaked out, call me because I've dealt with hauntings in my real life. So we'll freak her out even more. Right. So he was a total shyster. So he signed his name and he wrote down his phone number 702. And I said, I'd call him. Well, he fucking died. before I had a chance to do any of that. He was talking about opening a haunted bed and breakfast. He was talking about all sorts of shit. So he was trying to make money.
So everything I've ever read on that guy, I just got a shady vibe from.
Yeah, of course. I mean, dude, he was a master manipulator. He made millions of dollars writing a book that scared the shit out of everybody and fucking got out of his mortgage. And he lived in Las Vegas, so he was probably a gambler, right? So I got his autograph and his phone number. So then later, I was able to obtain a signature of Ronnie DeFeo. You know who that is, Ryan?
Yeah.
It sounds familiar. Who is it?
Ronnie DeFeo is the guy who killed everybody in the house that the Amityville Horror was based on. So before before George Lutz moved into the DeFeo house, Ronnie killed his entire family in that fucking house. Jeez. And so that's how George Lutz moved in. It was like, oh, there was people killed here. Well, I can make a horror story and get out of this fucking mortgage payment. So I've got an Amityville Horror poster that I'm going to infuse with the George Lutz signature and phone number with the Ronnie DeFeo signature and make it like an ultimate piece. So it'd be cool.
It would be cool.
It is
actually.
Cool. So one of the things we wanted to do was have so we could see his collection because it's pretty impressive. But as you can tell, now that's not even so that's just a serial killer side. He has a lot of horror stuff as well. Of like what Evil Dead, Doc. The
entire cast of Evil Dead: Tim Burton, Clive Barker, Glenn Danzig, Jerry Only, pretty much any 80s, 90s horror person you've ever thought of, I've got. But you can find those at CSP Authentics. They do shit all the time. There's a lot of online providers now that do mass signings of horror actors and stuff, so you can buy that shit no problem. Super easy. But the serial killer stuff is a little different.
That is, and that's not cheap either, man. Because I remember, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the Christmas card, which is just fucking crazy. Wasn't he like writing shit out like, "Hey, Merry Christmas, I didn't do it.
I'm innocent. The fucking government's a bunch of bullshit." It's got like a Xerox copy of him with the fucking swastika on his head, like in black, like super negative and stuff on it. Like,
yeah, he's crazy, like fucking Roseanne Barr, dude. He's like,
you gotta remember, I bought that before he died, and so now that he's dead, like,
oh, it's worth more.
Oh wow,
is it worth more though? I mean, that's got to be. So, like, when I used to collect baseball cards as a kid, I'd say, "Dad, this card's worth $15." And my dad says, "Yeah, that's if you can find some fucking idiot that's going to buy it."
Right.
And I would think,
I'm that idiot.
I just would think the collector's bull.
I'm that idiot.
For the Charles Manson autographed Christmas card.
But dude, I've got like a perfect like so there's been some shit that I've literally bought, and once it's in my house, I've got to get rid of it because I'm a skeptic, Andy. I don't believe in any paranormal shit. Like, I've had plenty of stories about stuff, but I just don't believe in that stuff. But there's certain pieces that I've gotten into my house that I literally don't feel comfortable having in my house. So
fuck no.
So
no way.
Lawrence Bittaker, are you guys familiar with him?
No.
They called him Lawrence Pliers Bittaker. And he was a serial killer with his friend, and they would kidnap girls, and they would audio tape themselves, like ripping their nipples off and doing horrific shit to people. And once I got that thing in my fucking house,
Jesus, like, you know what? This whole fucking conversation. And once I got that thing into my, you actually bought it, right?
I bought it because it was available, right? And just so you know,
go ahead. Just keep going.
The reason I bought it is because I had heard the audio tapes in a professional setting, not a like it wasn't a setting where it was like for enjoyment or entertainment.
Not a masturbatory setting.
Masturbatory, as our buddy Adam would say. It was a professional setting for training. And when I heard those recordings, I was like, Jesus, who could do something like that? So I bought them, and as soon as I had that piece of my house, I knew immediately. And my friend Myra, who I gave it to, is going to be fucking mad as fuck. But as soon as I got that thing in my house, I was like, I got to get it the fuck out of here. So I gave it to her free of, like, literally as a gift. Like, hey, take it. And she was super happy. But her girlfriend was like, fuck this thing. Like,
hey,
her
man.
girlfriend was not happy with it either. So,
if
like,
that shit,
definitely.
If that shit makes you feel that way, that shit's for real.
Yeah, dude. So we've talked about this, me and other friends of docs, and there's this like we talked about the Serbian film. There's some shit you can't unsee, and I'm not like all poltergeisty, whatever the hell it is, but there's this certain shit that just doesn't belong. It just has a bad aura around it. I would say that all of the shit that you got, all that shit you got.
Well, so here's what's crazy. So I used to own a company that sold horror movies and paraphernalia and all the shoes and posters and shit. And I met. Have you guys ever heard of Brain Damage Films?
No.
Brain Damage Films are the people who put out like the Traces of Death movies.
Oh yeah,
extreme death movies. Like it's all before the internet was a thing. These guys would. I don't know if you know this or not, Andy, but Faces of Death is completely fake.
yeah.
Faces of Death is completely fake. But that created an industry where people would put out compilations of real death shit before the internet was a thing, Ryan. So I met the CEO and president of Brain Damage Films. Unoriginally or not, his name is Brian Ramage, which rhymes with damage. So I met him and I was talking to him and I was like, hey man, has there ever been any footage you've received throughout the years that you've decided not to put on DVD or VHS? And he was like, dude, and he told me 3 scenes that he's never put on video, and they were the most disturbing shit I've ever heard in my life. So the reason I'm telling you this is because I started buying those movies trying to desensitize myself to real life violence, which I'm sure Andy's seen plenty of trauma, plenty of actual real life violence, the horrible things that people can do to each other. And the more I watched those movies, the more I became more sensitized to the fact that I had to get rid of all of them from my fucking house. Like there's not one lick of them left in my residence because of that fact. What do you think, Andy? Is that something you've dealt with in the past? We're just seeing trauma just resensitizes you to this shit.
So I'm so newly retired still and still struggling with a lot of different things that it's just all so new to me right now that I'm kind of hypersensitive to everything, if that makes any sense.
100%.
Getting, working at it every day, working at it with my therapist and whatnot, trying to decrease that sense of hyperarousal, all that bullshit that goes along with it. But man, I just totally forgot what you asked me.
All I'm talking about is the actual real horrors of the fucking world that horror movies take us away from because it's sensationalized. Like you and I and Ryan have seen real fucking trauma.
Night, Linda. Yeah.
Good night, Linda. We have seen real trauma. So that's ultimately why, like me and Ryan and guys like us, we look at horror movies to try and take us out of the real life trauma that's actually out there.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned this before, and I was trying to think what you said, but this is it in like a longer version of it. You had a way that you put it, like it's kind of a release. Maybe I'm saying this wrong. It's a release for you, or how did you put it? You said that it makes you feel. Well, I haven't thought of that yet. Like, when a lot of us just watch Cops. I used to watch Cops all the time, and I'd be like, shit, you get like a speeding ticket or something like that, and you'd watch some guy, all the shit they did on there, and you'd be like, well, fuck, I'm not that guy at least, So
like I'm watching this stuff in Israel right now, right? And it's horrible. And I don't want to see it because it's fucking horrible. And I would rather see fictionalized violence against like 2 fucking retards that want to have sex and smoke drugs.
Fake.
Hey, don't get personal, man. Don't talk about my family like that.
Damn. I want to see that. I would rather see fictionalized violence against people that maybe don't deserve it or do deserve it over innocent people. You know what I'm saying? That's why horror
totally
appeals to me.
So
it's an escape. It's an escapism from reality.
Yes. So anybody that says like, Ryan, that we're fucking weirdos because we like that shit, we want to see people get killed, like it's the exact opposite. I don't want to see anybody ever get hurt. Like when my kid falls down and scrapes his knee, I'm like fucking right there. Like I'm sure Andy is and you are. Like, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? Like, I don't want to see anybody get hurt. But if I can see Tom Savini or Dick Smith or fucking Rob Bottin do like this crazy setup where somebody gets their head fucking lopped off, that's fucking cool because it's totally fake and we know that. You know what I'm saying?
It's also one of the things I think that make you want to do what you did. You're comfortable with blood. Now, not in a I'm going to go kill someone way, but I can help someone. I'm going to get over there and help someone that needs some, they're bleeding. A lot of people are freaked out by blood, period. And that's not a good thing either. They're the same people that turn their head for a horror movie. And unfortunately, bad things happen. And when they do, someone needs to be stable. Someone needs to be composed to take care of the situation. So
you want to hear something weird?
Go.
So I'm one of them people that turns my head during those scenes in the movies, right? I don't know why. But in a real life situation, man, I'm just friggin' on it.
Knuckles deep?
Yeah, totally, 100%, man.
That is weird because you actually had to do. You've been in. We don't need to get into it, but you've been in.
He's a corpsman, for God's sake. He's done the silver bullet all the way up to evisceration, I'm sure. So.
I don't know whether again to be turned on or.
Well, it's just like so. I'll give the perfect example, right? So, like, my kid was learning to ride a four-wheeler, and he rode his four-wheeler, and he wrecked. And when he wrecked, he flew over the handlebars, but he didn't look like he was injured. My wife freaked the fuck out, dude. She was losing her shit.
Yeah.
And I walked over and like, hey, buddy, you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm good. And as soon as he saw his mom, Yep. He was like, he started fucking bawling. He'll never get on the four-wheeler again. He'll never. And it was just like, so, like, just trying to see that stuff. I saw it in real life. I was trying to, like, inundate myself with the fake stuff, or not the fake stuff, but the real stuff on video, trying to desensitize myself even more. And it was the exact opposite. Like, I understood, like, trauma is trauma. You have to remain calm. You have to try and deal with it, like, in a systematic effort to try and make sure that you don't overreact, but also at the same time seeing the stuff and seeing the evilness of the world and seeing how awful people can be to each other in real life makes you appreciate where you're at the moment. You know what I'm saying?
It does. It also makes it easier when shit happens to you. If you get a big cut, I don't know how many stitches or broken bones you guys have had, but if you get that and you look at it, you see it differently, like, because you're used to it. Maybe you're desensitized. I don't think that's what it is, but if you've experienced shit like that, it also makes it easier for you to deal with shit like that. So, because that it's, for me, like the skin and shit, when I see stuff like if you see someone get their throat cut, Andy, being what you did, that's not the end of the world. That's an easily fixable thing, right? You're not going to die, but in the movies they always die. You're not going to die. Well, it depends, but you can. What is it? What do they call that? An occlusion bandage, right? You can. But in the movies, they never try it. The guy's like, he's dead.
Just
let him bleed out.
I saw nobody. You just shove a fast food straw into their throat.
Yeah, just trach them.
You out of me, right? But to me, the skin's superficial, right? To some people, it's they can't handle it. They don't get that. It's the skin is a glove. If you cut your glove, you're still okay. You didn't hurt the organs, and that's what the skeleton's there for too. So, I think you learn to see things differently by understanding that. Or horror movies can be that release because you understand it, so it's a little bit easier, maybe palpable for people like us to watch and see.
And that's why horror is so effective or non-effective. It depends on people's personal trauma and what they've dealt with in the past.
That's a fantastic point, man.
Like, what have you seen in real life that affects you? And then when you see it on the screen portrayed fictitiously, like Andy sees trauma and he's like, that's not how that would look. Whereas you and I would be like, oh my God, that's fucking awesome. And Andy's like, that's bullshit. That's not how that would work at all. So it's based on your life experiences. It's based on your age. It's based on the trauma or the non-trauma you're dealing with at the time. You know, that's what imprints on you.
I got into a podcast with Andy because he does what is that, JT? Is it JTF, Andy, that you guys do together?
Yeah.
They're all like war victims, but I stepped into
We're all war
hey,
criminals. I mean,
war criminals.
Himmler
was in on that. Himmler's still around, by the way. So it was they were like they'd been PTSD kind of thing, and I remember he goes, "Hey, come on in for this one," and I was like, "Okay," and they were just talking shit. I'm like, going, one guy's missing his leg, and they're all like, "Well, and the host of the show had just had an incident where her fiance had."
It's her husband.
Her husband, had just committed suicide, so she was
minimize this a little bit.
Yeah, so I was in the middle of the show going, what the shit is going on? And they were like being kind and trying to get me involved, and I'm like, I don't really have anything to say here. I don't know what you guys live in a whole other world,
I'll say. Wait, what?
Yeah, so that was
never mind. That's just the voices in the head again. Ignore them.
But yeah, that's anyhow. Yeah, it's crazy. But it goes back to that. Like it wasn't always hip. It wasn't always cool to be a horror fan. And I'll say this. I wanted to say it earlier, but the 80s horror had an exclusive-ness to it, if this makes sense.
Rough edge, buddy.
Right. And you would sit down. I always watched them alone. Because my parents went to bed, so I'd have to sneak those, they were on Showtime or HBO or whatever they were. And the really brutal, it's not like Wes Craven wasn't a Steven Spielberg at the time. He would be like a porn star to Steven Spielberg's or you know what I mean, like the love story. Whoever making a love story, that's what he would be. They were kind of outcast to then. Sean Cunningham, who did the Friday the 13th, it would be kind of the same thing. So we had that select crowd that
Clive Barker, who was a fucking gay man trying to write stories that nobody wanted to listen to.
Oh, there he goes. And there he is.
I said gay man. He was like, I'm out.
Isn't that right? Oh, I'm out of here.
But you're right.
We didn't have that big budget.
I think he froze.
He didn't have a big budget either.
He ain't got no budget.
He got no budget. Yeah, well, that's what was so weird is it was so dark, and there was like what is it, Duck? What did you say? It had an edge, but there was almost an emptiness to it that made it even freakier and scarier because you knew that not everybody was watching this shit. This wasn't going to get the kind of attention. When I first seen it switch was when Scream came out, gone for years, and Scream came out. Esteve says unpolished. That's it. So there was like this. It was not mainstream. Scream came out. Craven does Scream, and all of a sudden, girls are watching it. Did you see that? Did you see this? Did you?
Well, you had,
and it becomes really mainstream,
Cox,
and then kids are seeing it again, right?
Neve Campbell, and you had like big movie stars and stuff. But before that, they were namely nobodies in the world making stuff that nobody wanted to see except for the underground kids living in trailer parks and who were alone by themselves.
Yeah,
again, can you leave my family out of this?
And that's definitely one of the things that no one can experience.
I'll invite them to Thanksgiving.
You'll never be able to experience that again. Like, what was the budget on Halloween? Like $500. We okay?
Define we.
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, is Doc there? think we lost him.
I'm not sure. Appears to be.
Yeah, but that's kind of what.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's just it. It wasn't mainstream. It wasn't that. It is today. So there was a different thing of being part of that club, and
I think what I don't like about the slasher films, it annoys the fuck out of me because I think differently. It pisses me off when they make the obvious fuck up that leads to either them or their friend's death or, whatever the case may be. When it's just like, oh man, it just frustrates the crap out of me. Because I don't get scared by those movies. I almost get pissed off watching them because of that shit.
Yeah.
Horror movies used to be like grim fairy tales. Like if you committed an act of immorality, you had premarital sex, you used drugs, whatever.
Now we're talking.
You're dead, right? But also think about this. What made horror movies so special is you used to have to search them out, right? Like I can remember specifically, like when I was a kid, hearing about movies and not being able to find them anywhere. They weren't on HBO. They weren't on Showtime.
Right.
They weren't. There was no streaming. There was no downloadable websites. Like I bought Stunt Rock on Amazon. It cost me $100 fucking on DVD to see it. But there was just the fact that it was unobtainable, right? Like these things were taboo. Like my stepdad, who you've heard plenty about this evening, he would have books about all the mafia figures, which got me interested in the serial killers and stuff. He would have books that would show like horrific shark attacks and shit, which obviously sparked my interest in real crime and real trauma and shit like that. But you had to search for that stuff. You couldn't just find it readily available anymore. So that's, I think, what's part of the mystique of horror. Like you have to really work to be a fan for it.
Man, you went deep.
That is deep, though. You're right, though, because on so many levels, that is it. You had to stay up late. Like today, it's one of the things you can do is you can get on Netflix first thing in the morning. You can get on Prime, and you could watch a horror movie if you want. Those things weren't coming on until late after they thought the kids had already went to bed, and you didn't get to play it back unless you, like you said, Doc, had paid $100 for whatever movie you said. No one's ever heard of it before, but you. Which again,
Stunt
is
Rock.
that what is it?
Stunt Rock.
Oh, okay.
Stunt Cock.
I just paid $57 for a copy of Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers on DVD.
Holy
so I could watch it whenever I wanted.
And a boy.
Yeah, that's but that's
Andy
it.
heard
You're
Hookers
right.
was like, "Yep."
You're right.
That reminds me of Clinton.
Nobody knows that today, though. Nobody understands that it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a big. It wasn't, like today a horror movie comes out and it's selling out. There was a select few back in the day. It wasn't going to be a hit. Halloween was probably a hit, but only a hit in the horror genre. Today, a horror movie is a hit in all genres. It can be the number one movie.
The Exorcist Believer is coming to streaming on October 23rd, Andy.
Holy
if
shit.
That tells you anything.
Stream it right out of your asshole is what you can do with that movie.
Do you remember waiting 3 years to get E.T. on VHS and it cost $100?
What about Star Wars, dude? Like they didn't play that forever. That thing, the only thing you got was a Christmas special. You have them on the Muppets or some shit like that because that was Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill's I'm Out of Money tour. But you didn't get Star Wars for years.
But dude, like you used to have to wait. I remember, like I tell people all the time, my son, dude, when the Great Pumpkin came on, you fucking stopped everything in the world to watch the Great Pumpkin for 30 fucking minutes. Like literally a commercial would come on, you'd run to the bathroom, come back, okay, it's back on, and you would watch it. You can watch that thing ad nauseum on Netflix or YouTube over and over again. These kids have unfettered access to fucking anything they've ever wanted to see at the touch of their fingertips, which makes it not special anymore. It's just fucking content. And that's a shame. It should be special. It should be hard to obtain. It should be something you seek out, you search for, but they haven't. And it's garbage. That's why The Exorcist, the Believer, or Believers, is total fucking bullshit.
Well, and that's what makes it precious too, right? In a way of figure of speech. It's like you said, it was appointment television. Now we've talked about that, Andy, having a podcast where we talk about appointment television, and it did a number of things. There'd be a movie on, the movie of the week. Back then, don't forget, there wasn't that many movie theaters around. Parents couldn't always afford to take an entire family out to see a movie, so we'd wait until it would be put on TV. Jaws was one of them for me, or Close Encounters of a Third Kind was one of them. And the family would get around. You'd make popcorn, and you'd sit down and you'd watch that movie together at a certain time. You'd be out with your friends, and everybody would be, like 20 people in the street. And at 8 o'clock or whatever time, 7 o'clock, everyone would scramble inside and they'd go watch that with their families. And if you missed it, you missed
seasons. So like nothing new came out during the summer because everybody was out doing summer shit. So that's why the fall, where everybody was inside, had all the new releases, right?
That's right.
Remember during the summer, you would always get reruns. You're like, what the fuck is this shit? I've already seen it.
Yeah.
How many times am I going to watch Fonzie jump over this damn shark?
What is that? Esther says, if you missed an episode of The Knight Rider.
That's true. That's absolutely fucking true.
You would stand around at school while everyone talked about it. What was it? And you knew you would never see it. Yeah, that's it. A big one for me was like Godzilla movies. Like a Saturday afternoon, they'd replay all those big Godzilla movies.
Gojira.
And I'd come in I go, I wonder where it's at. And because you could never tell because they were pretty much boring as hell until they'd show a monster. And then you'd be like, oh my God, but I don't know what part this is. And then I always seem to catch the last half hour. So I missed it. And I remember feeling that anxiety, that heartbreak. And then Batman 69s when, what was it?
Batman 69?
Yeah, the old ones, 60s ones.
Robin?
I was about
Batman
to say, that sounds like some disgusting porno fetish you have.
It could be. But those were one of those ones I'd always come in at the last, it'd be 5 minutes, and all of a sudden, do, and I'd be like, God damn it. But that's the way it was. You didn't get to restream it again. You missed it. You were out.
Godfather on HBO actually had a fucking 10-minute intermission where halfway through the movie, I remember HBO would do now we're pausing for a 10-minute intermission so you could go get your popcorn, jerk off, take a piss, whatever you got to do. But it was a literal live action 10-minute intermission because the movie was 3 hours and 30 minutes long. They don't do any of that shit anymore because you can just pause it. You can download it. You can watch it for later. It's fucking,
whip it out. Rub one out. Wait.
The closest I've ever had to that was I took a flight and I was watching Everything Everywhere All at Once on a plane. And I told the stewardess because they kept stopping the fucking movie to make announcements. And on the way in, I told the stewardess, if you fucking stop this movie before it ends, I'm going to fucking lose my shit. Because it was the last 3 minutes of the final reveal. And they were like, hello, this is your captain speaking. We're going to be landing. And it was like, if you don't fucking finish this fucking movie before I land, I'm going to fucking lose my shit because I'm at the finale. But that was the only time I felt like that in the last fucking 20 years because everything else is fucking irrelevant.
The time when the captain just wants to tell you irrelevant parts about his life that nobody ever.
If you look to the left, there's the Grand Canyon, and
funny about the Grand Canyon. I took my mother there last spring, and she broke her hip. And
you motherfucker, you're ruining my movie, man. Fuck you.
Yeah, But you know what? We're talking about this now. My parents did the same shit. They'd be like, "You guys just will never know how good it was," and they were. It was 50s for them, and I thought, yeah, I'm sure those fucking cold drive-in theater nights were unbelievable. Like, got to turn the heater back on again. So it's got its pluses. Like, we appreciate things, and I'm sure they appreciated things. But I was one of those guys that I had a certain music artist that I liked, or I had to have his tape. They'd come out on Tuesdays. They'd always be released on Tuesdays. I would be at the front door of like the record tape thing, waiting outside until they opened because you couldn't download. And that we talk about that a lot, but that's part of also what's happened with society, right? When you don't have to fucking struggle,
you don't have to work for anything.
Like just picking up your fucking favorite artist, getting up to do it, or being there and waiting and having to talk to people and hand cash over, and actually going through that whole thing, when you can just get up or have it preloaded or whatever, you don't know. It's crazy, but little things like that have given almost a sense of entitlement to everybody, and that's what we see on a day-to-day basis.
Think about it, Ryan. Like literally any song your kids have ever wanted to listen to, they can pull up just like that. Like, we had to wait for it to come on the radio, and then we would bitch because the DJ would talk over the fucking intro.
That's right.
Like, this is a new one from Dixie's Midnight. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so you would. It's easy to say, and that's part of the whole problem, right? It's like we go, how do the kids get like this? Well, that's how. It's if you don't have to do the little things in life. If you don't have to go, dude, they don't even have to go to Redbox. Remember when Redbox came out? I remember fucking Redbox. Like, I remember sitting with a group of people that stunk like shit to try to get the movie that I wanted. I couldn't get it.
Well, what about before that? Netflix, before they streamed, it was all the mail-out DVDs.
Netflix had the best fucking selection of DVDs I've ever seen in my life. I remember, like, going to Hollywood Video, looking for a movie, and couldn't find it, and I would go to Netflix, and it would pop up just like that. I was being like, oh, shit, I'll fucking order that through Netflix. And I would have it for 2 or 3 days, and I would try and send it back immediately so I could get the next one coming through, right?
Right.
Well, when was the last time you went to stream something or buy something online, and it said, sorry, we're all out of copies?
Exactly.
Right? You don't. You go to Blockbuster on a Friday night, and you're like, I'd really like to get that new... I'd really love to get that new freaking Lethal Weapon 2 if they got it in, but and you'd show up and there'd be like 50 fucking cassettes, but all of them were gone. And you're like, shit, looks like we're stuck with freaking Steel Magnolias.
Well, dude, my counterpart at Schlockernaut has a great point there. You have to buy a game or movie or a cassette based on the album cover or album art.
That's right.
Dude, I don't know how many times I got burned by seeing a fucking super cool album cover and buying it for $16.99 and getting it home, and it was the biggest piece of shit I'd ever heard in my fucking life. But the fucking cover was so cool. Just remember, like, looking at the back of VHSs and seeing like 2 or 3 still shots of like super cool fucking horror movies, and like, oh man, I gotta see this. And next thing you know, you're in fucking like the gate territory, or some fucking territory. You're like, what the fuck? This is a terrible movie.
Yeah.
Gate.
And that happens all the time. Just, like you just said, and Estef just said, right? You don't even have to go buy a game anymore. And it's just not even that. That's not even a factor. My kids are like, hey, can I get this game? Think about this. My son comes in all the time and goes, I want the Diablo's just on sale or whatever. Can I buy this? What that would have entailed to us is getting in the car, driving down to the store and buying it, or finding out if the store even had it first. We used to have to call, remember? Now you can just check online. You don't even have to do that anymore. It was back
calling somebody to see if they've got it in stock. Oh, what a nerd. What a nerd.
That's funny.
Well, I'm having some camera issues here.
Yeah, I was going to say, your camera's about to give me a fucking seizure over here.
That camera's got an ugly filter.
it ain't working.
Literally, my son comes in and he's like, hey, Dad, there's a game coming out tomorrow. and I need $30. Can you give me 30 schmeckles on fucking Venmo? What a bunch of fucking shit that sounds like wizardry. And I'm like, sure, here you go, son. And I have no idea if the money came out or not, or what, if even money exchanged hands, but he's automatically got the fucking game and he's happy. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I spent money or not. So who fucking cares?
Dude, my kid hasn't left the house since Christ wore sandals, and he has he's played every game known to man. Like if that were me, it would be like we'd be gone all the time. As many games as they get, and that's another thing. We didn't get shit for games. Remember when Nintendo would release like a few games a year, and they'd make them super ultra hard because they knew you better make this last.
Right,
dude. I remember 10 years ago sitting at fucking GameStop on Decatur at fucking 10 o'clock at night waiting for a midnight release. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm a grown-ass man.
Oh my God. I can't tell you how many times I've waited for a midnight release. Woo!
And I would tell the guys, I was like, you realize this game released on the East Coast 3 hours ago, and I'm waiting here right now for midnight. So now they're like, 10 o'clock. Oh, you can buy it right now. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's stupid.
Speaking of stupid, how about them stupid jokes I've been throwing out tonight?
Yeah, yo.
Hey, be sure to... Never mind.
Check out Soccer Now.
Well, should we wind this up here? Looks like my camera's about to shit.
Yeah. That sounds like a great time to wrap it up. Like I clearly failed to do with my two children. Anyway,
Andy, thanks for the Andy and Ryan. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, anyhow, it's good, dude. So, Doc, I'm thinking about doing another Halloween. All the way up? Let's just do it all the way through. Thanks, that's nice work. A little long.
I have no idea what you're saying.
The longer one, but yeah, thank you. You want to come on next week? Do you have the time, or
I'll do whatever you want.
Lose you?
Hey, how are you doing over there?
Jesus, Andy. I'm not talking about ATM. Jesus.
Oh. That's where you get your money, right? That's where you make your money.
Thank you guys very much for letting me come on.
Can't hear you.
My podcast is Schlock or Not. Can you not hear me?
I hear you just fine.
Yeah, and Ryan can't hear me, so that's cool. So thank you very much for having me on. My podcast is Schlock or Not. We release episodes rather abruptly, but we're always trying to do fan service. We're always trying to bring nostalgia to people, but we're also trying to introduce people to new stuff. So check us out, and thank you guys very much for having me on. I had a fucking absolute blast, Andy. Ryan, your internet needs to fuck right off. I love you very much, buddy, but your internet sucks butthole. So if you guys ever want me on again, and if you guys want to be on my show, Andy, I'd love to have you on a podcast to introduce you to something that's completely uncomfortable, just to see your reaction.
Hell yeah. I'm down.
So let's do it.
You've got an open invitation here, sir.
You too, as well, pal. Thank you. And Ryan, you've already been on, so you can be on again if you want, I guess.
Hey, did you order that Stallone figure? Did you guys order that?
I didn't. I used to have collectible action figures, but my wife told me I was a fucking pussy and told me to get rid of them. So
yeah, and I set mine. I started setting some up back here. And I was putting them in like how I wanted them arranged, and my wife goes, "Look at you playing with your dolls, dude." That freaking
collectible figure
was on lock. Dude, that Cobra was on lock because he produced that, and then it sold out instantly. Where everybody was bitching and going, they were writing and like, "What the hell? I can't even get that again," because there's never been one of those made. And so people were complaining, and he knew it was gonna be a hot thing, so he decided to put forth another batch, I guess. I don't know how many orders, but yeah, I snapped that. Done, sold.
Between my hearses and my BTK killer autographs, like my wife probably won't.
Sicko.
Wow, don't I feel fucking like the boring guy in the room? Anyway, hey Doc, don't go anywhere. We're gonna clear out of here. from the live broadcast, but we'll talk to you in the post-show room.
Love you long time, buddy.
In the lobby.
Tempt me with a damn good time. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for the participation. It was it was a lot of fun.
Good.
Doc, thank you so much for coming on doing the show. Like I said, you have an open invitation anytime you want to come on. Man, it was a blast.
You too, buddy. Thank you, man.
I feel like I know you. Oh, I don't know, man. It's weird.
Sounds good.
No weird side.
No
Andy
homo.
would say, sounds gay.
Okay, maybe a little, but you know what I mean. Forget
Little
about
bit
it.
gay.
Like Marine Corps gay. That kind of gay.
Grounds.
Yeah. Anyway, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll catch y'all next time. Peace out.